Welcome everyone to the Operations Committee meeting of June 18th. First up is the land acknowledgement. Pembroke land acknowledgement. As we gather today, I would respectfully acknowledge on the behalf of Council and the community that the City of Pembroke resides in unceded traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We thank the generation of people who have taken the care of this land for thousands of years, and is with this statement we honor and respect the Algonquins whose land we reside. Are there any disclosures of community interest? Seeing none. Motion to move the agenda. Deputy Mayor and Councillor Keel. Those in favor? Approved. Motion to move the minutes of the operation meeting of May 21st. Councillor Keel, seconded by Councillor Jacquinot. Those in favor? Approved. Any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none. First up, we have a presentation, and Mr. McLaughlin will do the introductions. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. The Buskerfest Committee Chair, Joanna Els, and Bethia Summers from the BBIA will be in attendance to provide a presentation on a Buskerfest that they would like to hold in the downtown core on August 10th, 2024, between the hours of 10 a.m. and 9 p.m. The Buskerfest Committee is asking Council to approve a road closure on Pembroke Street West between City Hall and Frank Niber from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. on August 10th, and has also requested Council waive the fees associated with the installation and removal of the use of road barriers. And these requests will be brought forward with the staff report following their presentation. I'll now turn it over to you ladies.
Thanks, Marielle. Thank you to Mayor and Council for having us here tonight. I'm Bethia Summers from the PBIA, and we're working in partnership with the Pembroke Buskerfest Committee to have a Buskerfest this year. It'd be the first of its kind in this area, so we're really looking forward to having a big, a really big city festival in our small hometown. So I'm going to let Joanna start, and yeah.
So I'm Joanna Els. I own the Nook Creperie and His and Hers Grazing downtown, so really invested in bringing some fun things to the downtown that will hopefully generate some tourism and get some people into our downtown core. So along with myself and Bethia, we have a dedicated team of really hardworking professionals that have come on board to really help us bring this Busker Festival to life. We've been working extremely hard. We want to make sure that we're really passionate about bringing this to our community and fostering lasting connections with people coming in and just having an experience that can be for all ages and everyone.
So some of you might be asking what a Buskerfest is, because as we've been talking to people in the community and businesses, we've come to realize that people aren't, necessarily sure what the scope of it is, and it's actually more than just musicians on the streets with a hat out. It's going to be an outdoor festival, and we're going to have musicians, but jugglers, magicians, stilt walkers, acrobats. We'll have some live art being done in real time. So it's quite a cultural event, and it really helps foster. We'll be trying to get some local talent, so it really helps foster the local arts community. We did compile a short video to show you what it's about. And it's including clips of all of the lineup that we are planning on having for the first Buskerfest.
So the goal of this festival is to enliven the downtown streets with a vibrant celebration of local and city talent. I'm in the downtown, with the downtown Pembroke Buskerfest. We've been working with a talent company in Ottawa that does the Spark Street Festival, so we've brought on people that really have a lot of knowledge on what they're doing and getting the talent that we need to make this a big city event, as Bethia said. Part of the reason we want to do this is we want to foster some we want people to build memories in the downtown. So I was passionate about bringing this project because this is something that I used to go to in Halifax every summer with my family. And I went back as an adult and I enjoyed it just as much. So we really think it's going to be something that will be really inclusive for young, old, in between families. So a little bit of something for everyone. So one of the things we want to do is we're going to have an opening soon for local talent to come forth, not only in just the performance area, but we are planning on having a side vendor market, as well as we've talked to a local car club about having a car show down one of the side streets as well. Just again, to bring a little something for everyone in and be able to bring in all kinds of different activities and things for people to enjoy.
Another reason we're hoping that you'll support the Buskerfest is because, you know, it will be a boost to tourism and economic boost. We're hoping to draw people in from all over the area. From looking at it, you know, Ottawa has a Buskerfest, but that's about the closest Buskerfest. So we'll be able to draw people from North Bay and from every end of the county.
So one of the things that we're looking at as well is, as I said before, is the community cohesion. So there's a lot of different events, whether it's just like specific to music or things like that, but we thought that we're trying really hard to bring in different things for all different people and something that everybody will find something that they can enjoy for the weekend. We've been extremely lucky that people have been very supportive. We've been fundraising like crazy, and we are just thrilled about how much everybody's come together. We've received funds from Petawawa as well as Laurentian Valley, and we are working on a large marketing campaign to try to market to outside communities so that we can bring those people in and hope to make this an annual event that will in turn draw tourism and things like that. We're also, our committee was very passionate about bringing some sort of a fundraising aspect to it as well, which I thought was very grand because we were already raising quite a bit of money. But they're really passionate about raising some funds for the pool. So we are working in conjunction with them to do a few different fundraisers throughout the weekend. So the main day will be the Saturday, where we'll be just having water at a very affordable price. That's been donated, and all the money will go towards the pool. And the Friday evening, we are having a small kind of opening ceremonies with a variety show, and we will be looking for donations for the pool. We're also looking for somebody to match those donations, but we're still in that process.
You know, we do think that this will help with cultural enrichment as well. So through a diverse lineup of performers, a Busker Festival celebrates cultural diversity and promotes cross-cultural understanding, exposes attendees to different art forms, music genre, traditions, encircling the cultural fabric of our community, as well as being inclusive. So you'll see from our layout that our map that we will be having porta potties on site, and we're making sure that we have at least 2 accessible porta potties. That includes any accessible washrooms that are in restaurants in the downtown that people will be able to use as well. Also, it's free to come to the event. There's no cost to enter the event and to watch the entertainment. The entertainers do encourage the attendees to tip and put some money in their hat, but whether you can afford to or not, you still get to enjoy the same as everyone else. So not only is it affordable because you don't have to travel, it's affordable because you can tip what you want and what you're able to afford. So the logistics, so we are planning a kickoff event at the amphitheater, so from 7 to 9, and it'll just be a snapshot of what's to be expected on the Saturday. And like Joanna mentioned, we're going to have the Friends of the Pool there to collect donations. So instead of putting the money in the hat for the performers, it will go towards the Friends of the Regional Pool. And then on August 10th, it's a full day lineup from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. We'll have 3 entertainment areas. They're not on stages, so that they just set up on the cement and do their thing, whether they've got a big trampoline or a big hoop, as you saw, or if it's just a guy on stilts, they use the space that's there. And that is, we will have extra waste bins placed out as well that day. All the trash receptacles downtown will be emptied late Friday night so that they're completely empty on Saturday morning, and then we'll be checking them periodically throughout the day. And then the PBIA will be responsible for getting rid of the garbage at the end of the day. We did include a map. Now it is subject to change just once we get talking with the organizer to see where it makes best suited to have the entertainment stages, but we do want to have it from one end to the other, that there will be something going on and something to excite people of every age. So as Marielle mentioned, we're asking for the city to approve the road closure from City Hall to Frank Niber. And we're also asking that the cost to put down the hard barricades be an in-kind donation from the city or the operations department. We thank you for taking the time for our proposal. And if you have any questions, please let us know.
Questions? Deputy Mayor?
Well, I just have a comment, and Joanna, I want to thank you, first of all, for joining the recent PBA board. You're welcome. And commend you and your committee for bringing this to Pembroke and Bethia, and it's a great event, and it's part of our strategic plan, the city with partnerships and to promote a vibrant downtown. So I'm really looking forward to it. I know you've raised a sizable sum of funds, still looking for more, and it's great that you're connecting with Ottawa also. So it's going to bring, it's a win-win for everyone, and it'll be a great day for Pembroke. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Freddie?
Yeah, it looks great. I've been to Busker festivals, and they're a lot of fun for everybody. I guess my only question, I know that your trick-or-treat day, that there was a lot of congestion. And when we had proposed that possibly closing part of the downtown, it wasn't received well. So I'm wondering how you're going to do this if that wasn't received well, because that was only a couple of hours that we were kind of saying, maybe you should close it down. And you had said it was, the merchants downtown were reluctant. So how is this being received?
So this is being received a little bit better because it's a full day event and because there's more opportunity, I think, for the people that are attending, that they'll be going into stores and spending money and staying at restaurants, because they'll be down there for a longer amount of time, and they're down there to enjoy the day and enjoy the downtown. They'll be setting up sidewalk sales. With the amount of trick-or-treaters, it's really hard for businesses to do any actual business that day, and it's such a, kids are there, they're getting candy, and then they're going to the next one. So there's not, it's a great community event, but there's not a lot of shopping that's done that day.
So that's why they didn't want traffic closed, even though it is a little bit of a safety issue. So I'm working on that still.
I think also it's because it's grown
Yeah.
to the extent that it
Yeah,
that it
it's
has.
fabulous. Okay.
It might be easier
Something to
to
look at.
yeah.
Anyway, I think this is wonderful. I do want to know, though, from the Works Department, what the cost of staff is for those barricade placements and removals. I know we've been having requests lately, and we are trying to put a hard line on our own expenses. I know the BIA is a big part of what we do in the city, but I am looking for that information before we make our decision. So thank you.
Can I speak?
I have Councillor Keel, then Councillor Jacko.
So I think this is an absolutely amazing event, and if for no other reason, I'm now looking at the summer, and we are about to kick off in Pembroke, one of the biggest Canada Days we've had in a long time. That's going to roll into the Music for a Cause at the Marina, which is going to roll into the Multicultural Festival. We're going to roll into, I don't know which one comes, I think yours comes before the Lasso Live event. I mean, for people constantly say online, that there's nothing to do in Pembroke. Well, if you got off your keyboard and looked at the calendar, you would see we're doing a lot in Pembroke. This is going to be a fun-filled summer in the city of Pembroke. You can't deny it, just based on the lineup that I know about, not even the stuff that we haven't yet learned about. I agree that this is going to draw, I think, a lot of people to the downtown. I mean, this is not something we've ever had. It's already, I already see the advertising and whatnot on Facebook, and it's getting lots of likes, so obviously people are engaged with it, and we're already, what, 2 months out even? So certainly I'm looking forward to this event. I won't repeat myself later. Councillor Lafreniere already went into it. Absolutely will be in favor of the road closure. But just as we did with the stereotypical event, it's going to be my expectation that the event pay for the operations costs. But that doesn't mean it doesn't it has my support in every way. I just think a couple weeks ago we did I hope we set a precedent and are being fair to everybody that's coming before council. So that's the only thing I'm going to say no to, but I'm even considering through my law firm being a sponsor as well. I know Bethia gave me the package for that. So fully supportive, just not the cost request.
Can I respond?
Councillor Giacono?
Thank you. What an innovative idea. Shows some real community spirit as well. I mean, businesses have suffered. They've come through the COVID period. My only concern, one of them is, we had a major commercial taxpayer here before us some time ago saying that if he had another year like he had with the street closures, he was going to go out of business. So I have some concern with that. But I'm also of the belief that it'll attract thousands of people to our area. Elijah McEwen on our Economic Development Department was on CTV television. He was interviewed and he was talking about Pembroke. And I think the program was called Road Trips. So people are traveling, not as far as they used to because of the price of fuel, but for a day trip, you know, they'll jump in the car from Ottawa, come up to Pembroke, which has 60 restaurants, which I really wasn't aware of, which Elijah told me about, you know, through the interview. He talked about the waterfront, the beauty of the community, the quality of the people, and I think all these things come together. So I congratulate you, and I would be of the vein to remove that fee for this particular event due to the fact that there have been so many hits with COVID over the past, and this will bring lots of people to the community. It'll expose them perhaps to some of the vacant storefronts we have here. It'll show our innovation as a city to attract new people and new business. So I'm truly in favor of what you're presenting. Thank you.
Am I able to respond?
Yeah, you can respond.
So thank you for that. I appreciate that. I just went to the Kemptville Buskerfest, which had 7,000 people at it in their small downtown that's significant, well, about the same size as ours, I would say a little bit smaller. And they had a huge turnout for that. We are in partnership with the PBIA, and the rec department has come in for a portion of our contributions that we've raised. But we have come on and done a lot of this as community members on our own. And I really, I just think we have really tried to bring something to the downtown. We've had a really rough couple years. And we're really trying to bring something here, and to hear that, I know it's a little bit of funds, but we are spending a lot of time. I run 2 businesses, I work way too much, but I'm so passionate about this. And for us to have your support and to help with the funds for this so that we can do this for years to come would mean a lot. We are a lot of people putting a lot of time and effort, and not just saying we want to do something, we're actually putting our pencils to paper and really pushing and doing this. We've spent hundreds of hours on this. So that's just my 2 cents, sorry.
Councillor Purcell?
I hear your passion, and I agree with you that our downtown has had a bit of a bad rap in the last few years. And I've been talking to a lot of individuals in regards to bringing that passion back and that sense of pride in our community, especially with their downtown. And I think moving forward, I think that's I'd be willing to offset those costs, and I think it's the reason why we've kind of had the map tax. I know it's not implemented until 2025, but there's 50% of those dollars that can go back in terms of offsetting some of those costs, such as the barriers and those kinds of things, in terms of the cost of that. So it'll be, you know, one-time hit, and if this is something that would be successful, it could be an annual event. That's what I'm hearing. Again, if anything, I think it really helps our downtown that's been struggling. We also heard from the owner of Giant Tiger and saying that, you know, business is tough, and I understand that. And I think, you know, the more opportunity that the city of Pembroke and community members and business owners can come together and promote an event such as this, I think it's awesome. And kudos to you and your organizers for a job well done, and I will be supporting this event with the request. So thank you.
Mayor Gervais?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to thank you for coming this evening, but more particularly to acknowledge, and so that all members of council realizes, is that you actually met with the operations staff as well as both Councillor Plummer and myself to go through operational concerns, if I can put it that way. And so wholeheartedly support it, because from an operational point of view, you took the time to actually meet and answer whatever our questions were, which again were operational in nature in terms of the porta potties, the barriers, police being able to come and go, fire department being able to come and go, and so forth. So I certainly support it, and thank you very much for coming this evening with it. But most of all is that you took the time to meet with staff and address issues, so that we weren't trying to address them, you know, for the first time here and banter around those particular concerns. Thank you.
Councillor Giacono, do you have another comment?
I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chair, that we waive the cost for this particular event as a first time, to see how it goes. Obviously, people have donated a lot of time, money, and effort, and I think we as a council have a responsibility to maybe give them a little bit of a break in this particular event. So I make that motion.
Okay, as we're in a presentation moment right now, where there's no motions at the moment, but there is the next item, first new business, is the Buskerfest staff report. See if you hold your motion until that report is given by staff.
I can hold my motion.
Thank you
Mr.
very
Chair.
much, Councillor Giacono. Any other final comments from our presenters?
I just wanted to say on the terms of logistics, I know one of the concerns with operations was the porta potty, and we were able to get the company to agree to do same day drop off and pick up. So they'll be dropped off early in the morning and picked up before the road reopens in the evening. So I know that was one concern about them being left overnight, but we got the company to agree to that. Yeah, so just thank you so much for your time and consideration. Hopefully you guys all will attend, and if any of you have any local talents, you know, we'll be putting the call out for people to audition and do some
And
juggling.
volunteers. We also
Yeah,
need
oh yeah,
volunteers.
and volunteers, so.
Councillor Frenny, has a final thought?
Through the chair, I think that was Councillor Giacono I saw doing the knives. So I think. Chainsaws. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your presentation. We look forward to the event. So, new business, welcome back, Ms. McLaughlin. So we're going to have a staff report on the Buskerfest.
Okay, thank you. Staff requires committee direction on the requests made by the Buskerfest committee related to the Buskerfest event. Request number 1 is for committee to approve a road closure on Pembroke Street West between City Hall and Frank Niber from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. on August 10th. And request number 2 is for committee to approve the waiving of costs associated with the installation, removal, and use of road barriers. The city does not currently have established fees for the installation, removal, and use of road barriers, but the operations department costs associated with the setup and takedown of the barricades for the Buskerfest closure would be in the range of $2,100 to $2,500, and this cost includes the labor, the equipment, and the required barricade materials. Thank you.
Okay, open it up to the floor. First, Councillor Frenny.
So again, this came to us not long ago with another event, and we decided that after last year's budget, that we needed to start drawing a hard line on some of these. But we also did decide to look at each event individually. You know, its merit, where's the money going, who's behind it, is it a business for profit, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I know there's going to be a motion coming forward to support it, and I think for this one time, I can support it. Looking at the costs, they're quite minimal. I do, however, want to know how it affected the downtown businesses. Was it worth their while later? So I would expect that there'd be a report coming back and make sure that, you know, it was a success and it was worth all the hard work of the volunteers and us waiving the fee, because we are trying to really enforce our fees and stick to our guns. And so, anyway, thank you.
Councillor Keel?
I mean, once again, I'm sitting around this table and I got to say that I'm shocked again. Councillor Frenier just mentions that this isn't much money. It is the exact same amount as the one we said no to a few weeks ago. And when I was running around this city going for re-election, one of the things I heard is that they don't trust the city council. They say it depends who you know. Some people get things, some people don't get things. I don't know where we ever said, you know, we're going to do this on a one-off, depending on, Councillor Frenier just said, depending on who you are, depending on what it is. That's what gets us in trouble. That's what, when people look at us and go, well, why did you say no to this person? How is the stereotypical fundraiser for the Robbie Dean Centre with a street closure any less deserving than this one? Nobody's answered that question yet, but we all know a few weeks ago we voted against giving the stereotypical Robbie Dean fundraiser waiving a fee. I have no doubt that this event is going to be good. I already said that a few minutes ago, but this event could be the biggest event in the city of Pembroke that still doesn't get money back into the city coffers for other things that we need to do, other things that we need to pay for. If this drew 100,000 people to the downtown businesses might have the best year that they've ever had. That doesn't mean they pay more taxes to the city of Pembroke. So when we come to budget time and we're looking for money and we're scraping here and we're having to say no to things, it's because we're waiving hundreds of dollars of fees at the rec department. We're losing thousands of dollars in rent by giving people $1 leases. The amount of money that this city is literally just ignoring and passing on is to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars a year. And then we come back at budget time and we go, you know, we don't want to raise your taxes, but we need to put in this new play equipment. We need to buy new barriers because they don't last that long. It's these smaller fees that add up over time that let us renew our supplies, that let us buy new things. The city of Pembroke, with all due respect, is not a charity. When you go to the town of Petawawa, and I have, with the Robbie Dean Centre, I went to the town of Petawawa, I said, I want to run a softball tournament. We raised thousands of dollars for the Robbie Dean Centre. Will you waive your fees for the softball diamonds in Petawawa? The answer wasn't just a no, the answer was we don't do that. So we're not entertaining it. And I'm not saying the city of Pembroke has to be mean. As far as I know, I don't want to put Mr. Durocher on the spot, but I think our contribution was a $5,000 cash contribution. So it's not that the city of Pembroke hasn't done anything for the Buskerfest. I would imagine the operations department they're going to have work to do for the Buskerfest. So I'm not trying to sound mean. I'm just wondering, at what point in time do we stop acting like a charity and do we start making tough decisions, not on one-off basis, but we start having policies where people know what the expectations are, that we're actually gaining money that we can then invest back into the community. I mean, the city's not a for-profit organization. When we have residents pay for things like boat launch fees and diamond fees and operations fees, we will be putting that money back into the city. There's nowhere else for us to put it. So I don't know. I don't see this. I would love to be nice to the Buskerfest. Like I said, I'm going to be sending a sponsorship check their way. But for us to say no a few weeks ago and then say yes this week, I think we're going to have people looking at us going, well, who do you know on the committee? Why is this committee different than the other committee? Imagine if you're stereotypical and Lasso Live and you're thinking, well, why are we not worthy? There shouldn't be one-off requests. I don't know. I find this perplexing that once again, despite the budget, that we're back to talking about giving things away again.
Deputy Mayor?
Make a motion to support the road closure from 9 to 9 on August 10th.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Keel. So first item, then call a question. Those in favor of the road closure? Carried unanimously. Was there anything else, Deputy Mayor, or we're gonna? Okay, His Worship, you have a comment?
That was the motion I was going to.
Oh, okay, all right. Any other comments? Councillor Jacquino?
Thank you. I certainly respect my, my honorable colleagues, honorable colleague. Well, you are an honorable person, and, you support many things throughout the community. I admire that. I think this is a specific thing that'll draw thousands of people to our community. I mean, we had an individual here telling us that, you have 70,000 people coming somewhere. All of them spend money. They buy an ice cream, they go to the restaurant, and I think it's an ideal thing that, as I said earlier, that businesses would fill up, et cetera. You're exposing your community to other people, and that builds confidence and business. And many of the businesses that are on our main street are supported by retired military. So, Petawawa people that came to the base, saw an opportunity, and opened a business. They're still here. And I mean, and they're still thriving. Those people are still in business, many of them. So, Mr. Chair, I do understand what Councillor Keel is saying, but I think Council also has the ability to look at anything on a one-to-one. That's our resolve to be here. We have that right, and I think we're just executing it. And for that reason, I will make a motion that we waive the fees for this first time to see if there's any success with this particular event. And that is the motion on the floor, sir.
Okay, Deputy Mayor.
I'll
is there
second the motion.
a Second. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, I'll just have one comment from the chair then. Certainly, I've heard the comments around the table. We understand the importance of the event and try and promote the downtown. Certainly, it's understanding from Councillor Keel's comments that, things cost money here in the city. We want to put it back in, but also Councillor Fenney, we do respect her opinion and as well. We want to, this may be a one-time event, and we want to choose this event over another one. But I say, from my personal experience, if people want to give something, they give with their own money and not with someone else's. So I'll personally commit $500 of my personal money to the Buskers Festival to help pay for that. If any other council member around the table wants to chip in, we can all pay for this together and without spending the taxpayers' money. So I got 500 from Councillor Keel, 500 from myself. Would any other council member like to donate? Councillor Purcell gets 500, so it's 1,500. Anybody else?
I'd just like to make a comment that I
Sure.
support the community as well. I supported a chair for the homeless, and I'm tapped out.
That's fine. And I'm not looking around the table trying to pressure people. I'm just saying that sometimes it's ability to give your own money and not someone else, not the city's tax dollars. So, all right. So the motion's still on the table then for to waive the fees. So, yes.
Question in regards to your very honorable and generous donations. Will that affect the price of my motion based on the operations department waiving their fees? Will that just reduce the fee? Or
Well-
where are we with that?
We can do that. That would be, we have $1,500 off the fee, so that's $1,000. The in-kind donation from the three members would be $1,500. And whatever, there is a amount of $2,100 to $2,500. So if we take the high end, that's still a $1,000 donation from the city.
So do we need an amendment to that motion? Will someone else want to make an amendment? Councillor Purcell, seeing that you're making a donation?
Certainly, so I amend the original motion to, I guess would it be $1,000 would be the contribution in terms of the city dollars with the contributions from the three councillors here. Does that make sense? Right.
Yeah. Does the seconder agree with the amendment? Do we vote on the amendment then? Yeah, so motion to approve, call a question, those who approve the amendment? Approved, so then vote on the original, or vote on the amended motion then for the city to donate $1,000 to the Buskers Festival. Those in favor? 4, opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Lewis, welcome. Next item is pre-purchase of specialized equipment for the filters, landers, and under-tile drains replacement project at the water purification plant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and my apologies for that lengthy title on the report. The Operations Department recommends committee approve the pre-purchase of specialized equipment required for the filters, launders, and under-tile drains replacement project at the WPP. On November 7th of '23, the Finance and Admin Committee directed staff to procure the supply and installation of this project under Construction Manager at Risk, CMAR methodology. The Operations Committee on December 19th of '23, committee approved the sole source procurement with Anthratech Western Inc., AWI, using the CMAR. An RFP for the CMAR contract was issued to AWI, was received by the city, with a contract one of the project being initiated under the construction manager as advisor. The submission of a guaranteed maximum price to complete contract two is being finalized, and we anticipate it to be presented at the committee meeting on July 16th of this year. AWI, the consultant, AWI, the contractor, and CMAR, the consultant AE and WPP staff are completing additional work to confirm several items and to further search for potential cost savings, as reductions and efficiencies before we present the GMP contract. During the ongoing work of the project team, including working out schedules and critical path and finalizing the designs for the filtration systems, it has been recommended to pre-purchase the highly specialized custom-made equipment. As part of the collaborative approach to the CMAR project and to fast-track timelines, works need to be completed simultaneously. That was part of the discussions I had when we discussed CMAR and the benefits of CMAR. The intent of the equipment pre-purchase is to allow for various project items to happen concurrently. To meet the current project schedule and timelines, the ordering and fabrication of the filtration equipment is necessary as we put the final touches on the design. When it comes to the mobile filtration equipment, I'll call that the MFU, to allow for staff to become familiar with the system and allow for the contractor to work out any operational issues ahead of time, ahead of the September shutdown. An August install of the MFU is required. Additionally, and if today is any indication, it's going to be a very hot, dry summer. And the redundancy of having the MFU operational will provide redundancy if one of our existing filters should fail. And they're at that point, hence why we're doing this project. The MFU will also provide us with additional capacity during the high-demand summer months, again, today being an example. The quotes for pre-purchase have been reviewed and are in meeting with the previously discussed project needs and in line with the pricing that was presented. The consultant AE is recommending the pre-purchase of the equipment. Some additional information, as we're all aware, detailed cost estimating isn't always possible until a design has commenced and a firm project scope is determined. So like a road reconstruction project or an underground infrastructure project, we make assumptions when we first come up with those budgets and those estimates. That's at the concept stage. Then after we do due diligence studies, we complete those, we do some testing and some further investigations, and we refine those estimates. In this particular project, the testing of the existing filter media was needed. We did samples of that media. We did samples of the city's surface water source, which is the Ottawa River. We've been doing testing for a number of months now. All that stuff has now come to fruition, and we're finalizing the design. AWI, WPP staff, and the consultant have worked to find cost savings throughout the design, including the use of an existing tank for the MFU rather than having to fabricate a new tank. So estimates for the supply and installation of the filter upgrades at the initial scope determination was in the magnitude of $2.8 million, plus the consultant fees and the CMA. At pre-design, the costs were increased to 3.25 plus. Now with the work that AWI staff and the team have done, the estimate is back down to the 3.1 plus consultant fees and CMA fees. So there has been some increases. They can be attributed to the complexity of the integration of the temporary system and of course with current market pricing. We all know that current market pricing is difficult to deal with. Majority, if not all of the fabrication here is stainless steel, heavy-duty stainless steel components, heavy-duty stainless steel tank, and the configuration of the temporary unit on the outside of the existing plant, and how we have to, if I can say it in a simplified version, how we have to plumb the water filtration plant to run through a temporary filtration system and then back out into the distribution system is quite complex, and it all needs to be integrated with our SCADA system so that we can monitor it on a regular basis throughout our 365 days a year that we work. With all that being said, moving into financial, the total cost of the supply and installation of the MFU and the under drain system with the filter media is $1,870,000 plus applicable HST. Total cost has increased. Total cost of the project has increased after the due diligence study on the required filter media and the required temporary filtration system designs have been completed. Total project costs are now anticipated to be in the magnitude of $3.5 million to complete all the works. In the 2024 capital budget, we had $3.15 million. The overrun is roughly $350,000, and it can be funded using the water filtration plant reserve. That is a reserve specifically put together for upgrades to the plant. At the end of 2024, the year-end balance is anticipated to be $2.95 million. I'm not asking for a motion on the $3.5 million. I'm asking for a motion specifically on the $1.870 for the pre-purchase, just to be clear. The strategic plan impact of this report is the vision of infrastructure in good condition with no major failures. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Worship?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would move that we proceed with the pre-purchase of the specialized equipment required for the filter launders and under tile draining replacement for the amount indicated by Mr. Lewis, the $1,870,000 plus applicable HST.
Councillor Keel?
I'll second it.
Further discussion? Seeing none, then call the question. Those in favor? Approved. Last item of the night, Mr. Lewis, Operations Department user fees.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Operations Department is recommending the committee approve the proposed fee changes under the city's user fees as presented in this report. If changes are approved, relevant bylaws will be brought forward at a future meeting of council. User fees were discussed at budget time. In 2023, the Operations Department used a comparison basis of fees along with an update of material prices for the Operations Department user fees. For 2024, fees are being increased to meet actual labor, equipment, and material costs, as well as to be in line with the water and sewer rate increases approved within the 2024 budget. Water rate-related items within the schedule that's attached have been increased 5.7% and 9.8%. That's dependent upon whether it's a flat rate, a residential component, or a bulk rate, so more on the commercial side of things, or a bulk rate item. For sewer increases, same type of rationale was used at 5.2% and 6.9%. The fees are attached to the schedule, as I had mentioned. Some previously included user fees have been deleted because they're no longer applicable, items that we no longer use. The strategic plan impact of this item is the contribution to the city's overall financial sustainability. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Keel?
I move that the committee approve the proposed fee changes as attached to this report.
Deputy Mayor?
Second the motion.
Further questions, comments? Seeing none, call the question. Those in favor? Approved. Motion to adjourn? Councillor Keel, Deputy Mayor? Motion? Sorry. Call the question. We are adjourned. Thank you.
I'd like to call the Parks and Recreation Committee meeting of Tuesday, June 18th, 2024 to order. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, could I have a motion to approve the meeting agenda? Moved by Councillor Keel, seconded by Councillor Plummer. All in favor? Thank you. The minutes of the May 21st Parks and Recreation Committee were circulated. Any errors or omissions, first of all? No, seeing none. Motion to accept Councillor Keel, Councillor Plummer, all in favor? Thank you. Any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none. New business, lease agreement with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, Canada, Small Crafts Harbour. Mr. DeRoche, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the recommendation for this report is that the Parks and Recreation Department recommend that committee enters into a lease agreement with the Department of Fisheries and Oceans Canada, Small Craft Harbours, to continue managing and operating the services of the Pembroke Marina. A bit of background on this report. So every 5 years, the City of Pembroke enters into an agreement to lease the Marina Basin with the DFO. The city occupies the premise and carries out the management of operations of the marina. So as with the previous agreements, the nature of this agreement would remain the same as the previous years, and the city is responsible for the repair and maintenance, including any major structure repairs or improvements. At the time the previous lease agreement was up for renewal was in 2022. At that time, the department had some discussions with DFO just with respects to retirement, upcoming retirement in the department. So this was deferred till this year. They gave us the benefit of the doubt the last couple of years. And as you will see in the attached agreement, that the agreement has been backdated to May 1st, 2022, with an expiry of April 30th, 2027. So should council agree to this, we would be bringing this forward in 3 years from now. As many council members probably know, the Marina Basin is home to 100 seasonal slips as well as 3 visitor slips. We've got 4 docks along with a service system, and our summer hours of operation are 7 days a week, and we do scale back in the fall time. As far as the financial implications go, I didn't have all the information at the time the report was written, but I can share with you that the leasee, which is the city, is responsible for paying an annual fee of $500, which is essentially a down payment for the year. The remaining amount, which is 20% of the gross sales, including slip rentals and launches. So the total for 2023 with HST was $19,993.75. So at this time, I'll turn it back to the chair. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions, comments? Seeing none? Do you need a motion? Yeah. Motion, Deputy Mayor?
Motion to approve the agreement.
Moved by Deputy Mayor that we accept the agreement, seconded by Councillor Plummer. Question, Councillor Jackno?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A number of years ago, the Marina Basin was dredged, and with, silt from the rivers, et cetera, are we looking at having to dredge the main entranceway where the boats are coming in and out? Is there an issue there, and who does that, and who pays for that?
Thank you. So through the chair, so at this point in time, we have no reason to dredge it. If we were to dredge it, we'd have to get permission from DFO. It is a long process because there is a series of things that we have to go through. We have to look at a series of species at risk, get a costing. There is grant sharing up to 50% with DFO. But their funds are limited. So there are other leases throughout the province, the country, that they do look after. So it just depends on what kind of money is available. But in the event that we would have to dredge it, which we will have to at some point in time, it would be a discussion with DFO and asking permission. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor. All in favor? Approved. Thank you. Next, again, Jordan, advertising agreement with the Pembroke Minor Hockey League.
All right, thank you, Chair. The recommendation for this report is that the Parks and Recreation Department recommend that committee enters into an agreement with the Pembroke Minor Hockey Association for rink board advertising at the Pembroke and Area Community Centre with automatic renewals every 3 years with review at the end of the term. In addition, consider appropriate increases to install and removal of signs keeping in line with staff costing increases. So a bit of background on this one. The Pembroke Minor Hockey Association met with us to have discussion on this advertising opportunity. In the past, minor hockey had an agreement with the corporation to erect rink board advertising at the PACC, and that last agreement expired in August of 2012. Now, I know there has been discussion around the table that council is looking at expired agreements and trying to get those up to speed. This one is a lot younger than some of the other ones that we're coming across, but we're trying to tick each one of those off as we come across them. So the nature of the agreement would remain the same, as both parties were satisfied with the agreement. The only difference would be that the original cost to install a sign was $15, and we are proposing $30 for install. Minor Hockey would be responsible for securing the advertising, so they'd communicate with us, the Parks and Recreation Department, for the install, as well as paying 40% of the rental cost. So as in the past, they would like to keep the 3-year term with automatic renewals every 3 years. What's really important to understand about this is that it does guarantee revenue each and every year, and it lessens the burden of chasing advertisers. So keeping in mind that our season ends at the end of March, they only have a couple months essentially to tie that up before we put ice again at the PACC. The other thing is to consider adjustments for install increases. So we are all aware that there are increases on a yearly basis with the union agreement, and we want to be able to consider those after a 3-year term.
Questions or comments?
Sorry, if I can
sorry.
just finish. So the Minor Hockey, right now, they do have a very enthusiastic membership who is looking to seek out this advertising. So I think it's certainly works out for both parties, both the City of Pembroke as well as Minor Hockey. Just really quickly, as far as the financial implications go, so the cost of advertising would be $500, which we'd retain 40% or $200 per sign, and then plus we would charge $30 for install and a $30 removal fee. So the vendor is 100% responsible for all the appropriate graphics, the Lexon, size, dimension, all those kind of things to get the sign on the rink boards. The department does anticipate that we could potentially fill 20 locations, and Minor Hockey felt that that was pretty achievable. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Motion to enter into the agreement as per staff's recommendation.
Okay, it's been moved by the Deputy Mayor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Jack, no. Further comments? Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So while I support what it is, because I know every rink I go to, there's always advertising and so forth, and it assists in terms of offsetting costs. What my question is in terms of, does the City of Pembroke have any oversight in relation to someone wanting to advertise, such that if someone wanted to advertise and it was not appropriate, let me put it that way, in the rink, and you can let your mind wander there, but there's children playing hockey and so forth, and if something wasn't appropriate, does the City of Pembroke have any oversight in terms of what goes up on the boards?
Through the chair, I would say that we don't necessarily have the oversight, but I feel that Minor Hockey, we have a good enough relationship that I think we would have a discussion if they felt like something was out of the norm. Thank you.
Does that satisfy you? Thank you. Councillor Purcell?
Thanks, Jordan. Director DeRoche. I guess my only question is in regards to like the fee structure pieces, similar to what we just saw with operations. I was just wondering if we can come back with a kind of like an operational fee structure in terms of hourly costs associated with the erection in terms of the advertisement. And I guess the other question I have, is there a minimum timeline in terms of the duration of the advertising being available? Maybe you can answer that question.
Sure. So through the chair, to answer your first question is, yeah, I definitely think that with the executive being enthusiastic about this opportunity, I think at some point in time the department should bring back some kind of fee structure. To answer your second question, we can work with them. So ideally, we would like to have them up before the ice goes in, but there's nothing stopping this if they have a new opportunity. I mean, we are getting 40%, so we can work with them. It's no different than the Pembroke Lumber Kings. We're constantly changing signs throughout the year. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Keel?
Just in response to the, I shouldn't have moved things. Into response to the mayor, Part 3E, the licensee agrees that the design and colors for all signs must meet the standards of the licensor and receive the approval of the licensor, which will not be unreasonably withheld. So I think we would have the ability to monitor things, but I also agree with Mr. DeRoche that I'm not too concerned about Pembroke Minor Hockey.
Thank you. Councillor Purcell?
I guess just to reiterate, I know that through discussions with Mr. DeRoche, it takes 2 individuals 1 hour to erect a sign, so for $30. Meanwhile, you look at an operations rate just to turn off water, but during regular business hours is $47. So it's, it's going to cost, something roughly around that. So it's $100 to erect a sign, just to erect a sign. So that's why I'm asking in terms of the fee structure. Just wanted to put some clarification in regards to, making sure that we're getting our dollars back. So in terms of $30, and I know we're getting $200, but you have to take that in consideration, that it's costing us probably $100 per sign just to erect it.
No further comments? I'll call the question. All in favor? Approved. And next item on the agenda, public-private partnership P3 next steps. Jordan.
All right, thank you, Chair. So the recommendation for this report is that the Parks and Recreation Department recommend that the committee, number one, dissolves the Pool Oversight Advisory Committee and formalize a project steering committee to move the project forward with terms of reference outlining the decision-making powers of the committee. And number two, analyze and support suitable studies to finalize the scope of work. A bit of background on this report. So as Council is aware, last month at the Parks and Recreation Committee, Andrea Finley from Collier's Project Leaders presented the findings of the request for expression of interest for the P3 to Council. In addition, we also had Sean Morley, who is a person practicing in the area of infrastructure and public-private partnership. The conclusion of the report was pretty straightforward, that prior to the city entering into a P3 project, that the city fully understands the role they will have in the partnership and how it will ultimately be managed. So we heard this a couple times from the consultants. In doing so, a formal steering committee should be established for the project. So of course, this would allow for full decision-making powers, budget authority, allowing for check-ins with approved stakeholders as well as council. Neighboring municipalities such as LV should be brought to the table. We should be inviting them just for transparency as well as continued partnerships. And project costs should be shared moving forward. So this should be something that, looking at something with using a formula for predetermined amounts that would be separate from the current recreation agreement. So we've just put a few things here in the report as far as what the steering committee would allow for. So the first thing is defining scope of work. So again, we really heard this from our consultants that we really need to, at this point in time, really define that scope of work to be able to, or allow us to move forward in any kind of P3 project. The second point was that, finding that suitable procurement option based on the scope of work. So once we find that scope of work, understanding the financial modeling analysis. Next would be that if a P3 partner should be the preferred approach, that we do develop a project design with a P3 planner. And finally, looking at construction, so P3 or municipal. So understanding what those costs are associated with borrowing. What would it look like if we went through with a P3, and what would it look like if we debentured a project? And within that, there was just a couple points that we made here too, looking at repair versus replace study. And so this is particularly comes into play with the PMC and the PACC. I think what's really important about this one here is that Madam Treasurer has been doing some things like increasing the capital reserves and those kind of things. So can that impact that we simply just need to repair a facility versus replace? Or maybe, a study would tell us that we do need to replace the facility. The second thing is the hiring of a consultant for the owner's engineer services RFP. So with this one, we really need to get it right. I know that we could submit an RFP at any given day. The only problem with that is that it increases our financial risk. So if we just put out an RFP in a hurry, what happens is the proponent is typically going to be looking at this, and whatever's not in the RFP, they're going to assume that they're going to have to do it, which would hike up the cost. So it's really important that we would take our time on this one and really get it right. And then finally, to take a look at the Recreation Master Plan, have it finalized, and as this should provide some feedback, and we're hoping that this will be finalized late summer, early fall. As far as some financial implications, there's really no immediate cost at this point in time to dissolve the current Pool Oversight Advisory Committee, and then of course to establish a project steering committee for the Kinsman Pool. Of course, costs associated with future engineering reports and plans would be determined by the approved budgets. And Madam Treasurer also had just put in some bullet points here just underneath the financial implications. And this was just essentially just to keep some things in mind as we go along, and I'll just go through them really quickly here. So the first one being that the municipalities can typically borrow funds at a lower interest rate. So again, it's just understanding what the differences are in those interest rates. And while it is possible that the private organizations may be able to construct or maintain buildings at a lower cost, municipalities have no real profit motive or profit margin. So I know kind of when we were talking last month about user fees, understanding that our costs are going up and how do we close that gap, and council approved a 5% increase over the next 3 years. The third point is that while it is possible a P3 can extend the financing term to a lump sum payment at the conclusion of the project, plus of course the annual payments, those come with extra interest costs. So again, just need to understand what those costs are, because it could be substantial enough that that could fund another infrastructure project or other infrastructure in the city. Fourth point was demand for recreation services like ice time price sensitivity. So again, of course, everybody wants low prices, and we all know that that can't happen, and fees will increase every single year. But it's just understanding that depending on what the costs are for a group, that we want to keep that in mind. And I know that there has been discussion around the table talking about how other P3 partnerships have bought 800 hours of ice. This past year, we sold 2,200 hours of minor sports ice time. So I mean, how do you sell 800 hours of ice? And so there would be something that we'd have to work through and look at that. And what is the cost? The next point is a reliable base of city staff, and I did mention this in our budget deliberations this past year, and just understanding that what does this mean, and how does it work with staff? We are a seasonal department. We're constantly chasing seasons. So, what does that mean for us if all of a sudden, we no longer need staff in arenas anymore? Another point was just formal strategy, again, kind of reiterating the repair versus the replace, and then, of course, a firm scope of work. So we did just attach a cost analysis for the new aquatic facility, and it's just something that we put in there just for council just to have a glance again, and just understanding that we did get costings for a new aquatic facility, but we haven't for a multi-purpose facility, and of course we'd basically be starting all over again. So thank you.
Comments and questions? Councillor Plummer.
Thank you very much. So I think as a council, we've come to we made a motion before that we wanted to move ahead with a P3 and actually get some hard costs. We still haven't achieved that, so I think this is reasonable to conclude to go to next steps. So I have a kind of a prepared motion with understanding that it actually encompasses most of the Mr. Giroche's points. So I'll read it out, and then we can, if there's a seconder, we can discuss further. So, that a Sportsplex Steering Committee be established and shall consist of 3 members of the City of Council, and the invitations be sent to Township of Laurentian Valley, Township of Whitewater, and each send 1 member of council to the member committee. That invitations be sent to various sports groups and interest parties, including the Friends of the Regional Pool Committee, to send a representative to participate in delegations and deliberations for Sportsplex Committee with a non-voting representation and permanent observer status. The CEO is in direction to appoint more than 1 member or 1 member to staff to the City of Pembroke to support the work on the committee. The committee shall develop detailed terms and reference for the P3 project. The committee shall assess financing options included from local municipalities, sponsors, fundraising efforts, donors, higher levels of governance, and others. The committee shall make recommendations on next steps with the goal of issuing an RFP for a new sportsplex, including consideration of hiring an owner's engineer to assist in the design proposal, project management, and RFP process. Among such duties as the owner's engineer shall be assisted to do an asset or to assist the committee and council. The committee, in coordination with any hired professionals, will actively seek public input defined by the scope of the project. Town hall sessions will be held at the City of Pembroke, Township of Laurentian Valley, if desired by its council, and the Township of the Whitewater Region, if desired by its council, and any such other locations as thought to be beneficial to the project, gathering community feedback. The committee and any hired professionals shall present final reports to council on by December 1st, 2024. Thank you.
Seconded by Councillor Keel. Discussion.
So I'll further
Sir,
discuss
do you
that.
want to, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so there was a lot in there, obviously. I think the main points to get across is we want to move through the formal adoption of steering committee. We want to assign members of city council to it, as well as invite our partners in this project, such as Laurentian Valley, Whitewater Region, if they choose to commit a member, various groups, including the Friends of Regional Pool. So these members can all come together and discuss and move forward on the next steps, as well as the discussion with a procurement of a owner's engineer or any hired professionals. Then that would obviously come back to council to then be presented and understand how to move forward with that. I'll pass it off to Councillor Keel then.
Comments, Councillor Keel?
So I would agree with Councillor Plummer's initial comment, which is, you know, this council's already sort of said, you know, this is the project we want to look at. I think when I was zooming in, was that a month ago then? I guess 2 council meetings ago, we had Colliers in with the lawyer from, was he from Faskins, I think? And I think my question at the time was, okay, so how do we actually get to the point of creating something that needs to be costed and that we want to see? Certainly, there's probably nothing more, and in this, you know, in this, even Councillor Purcell, I think, has more procurement experience than I do. There's nothing more interesting than coming onto a council and seeing how you buy things. And, you know, this is probably a conversation that actually I'd love to have over coffee with Councillor Giacono, because in your normal life, you know, you hire somebody to come, you know, you want a new deck on your backyard. You call around, you get people to come to your backyard, you say, well, what about this, and what about this, and what about this? But in a municipal procurement process, you can't just go to these builders and that and say, can you just come have a chat? Like, you have to kind of get your design there, and then you have to get it, you know, your expectations and your costs, and then you put it out for tender. You don't go to the end and invite them into your backyard first. So it's certainly an interesting process, but I guess my frustration is we first had, I think, a vote on the concept of looking at a P3, oh, I don't want to lie to people, it was November, December, and then I think we had a staff report in December, and then we put it out for the request for information or whatever that was, and then that doesn't come back. And I mean, we are now months down the line, and all I'm saying is, if we want to look at this, I think we need to actually start taking concrete steps to actually look at it. So that's why I would certainly support having a steering committee. I don't know about other members of council, but I don't think this should be coming back to us at every meeting or every 2 meetings. I think we should have a smaller group that knows what council's desire is and knows what the hopeful goal is, and to actually get us there. So, I mean, the one thing that I guess we didn't just do was give staff the opportunity to comment on what they think of the motion or whatnot. But basically, at this point, I think a smaller steering committee is the way to go. Certainly, Councillor Plummer noted that there needs to be community involvement, and I think that's an absolute must. I think the motion provided for looking at the financials and whatnot, so that's an absolute must. So I just, at this point in time, I think we just need to start getting this car going down the road. It's not to say, you know, nobody on this council, I think, is looking for us to crash and burn, like perhaps one of our neighboring municipalities have done recently with a sportsplex. But I do think we need to stop talking about where we're going and start to get the wheels in motion to actually look at it. So that's the point where I'm at. I'm not closing the door or on other models. I know the treasurer did say that she thinks she knows of you know, that there's other possibilities. Not that she knows of them, but that there could potentially be other possibilities. I'm willing to look at all of that, but we need to actually get there. We need to actually get moving.
Councillor Purcell?
Thank you, Chair. I echo the same sentiments as Councillor Keel. I think, you know, we have an opportunity to move this thing forward. You know, we don't want to get ourselves back into a situation where we don't have a plan or a strategy in terms of enhancing our recreation. facilities. You know, we've got some major aging infrastructure, recreation facilities that are needed repair. You have to weigh those costs, and also that there's a certain longevity to some of these facilities as well. So we have to look at both. I agree in terms of, you know, because it's not going to happen overnight in terms of getting this in place. But that being said, I think, you know, eventually we have to, you know, say that we're going to go in this direction for a new build. So, you know, coming from CNL and understanding all the new builds that they, you know, that they've done recently, there are opportunities out there, and there's not just one model that may work. You know, I think we need to look at those models, and I think we need a steering committee to work with, you know, the various different individuals and organizations and municipalities to come up with a clear vision in terms of what we're going to build and move that forward. I do believe that, you know, this community is ready for such an investment in terms of our future. We have three major, I guess, housing projects that are going on. We're looking at some growth. We're seeing some growth around us in regards to, you know, various different opportunities. Like CNL is one of the places that's growing rapidly. You know, Base Petawawa is growing. You know, so there's opportunities here in our area to provide our residents and you know, more of a regional approach, a really good recreational experience. And, you know, these are things that, you know, improve wellness as well. So my only concern, and I really want to make sure that we've echoed this, is that we have very clear communication strategies. I received a couple of calls from the Friends of the Regional Pool, and I wanted to echo some of their concerns, and just making sure that we have clear criteria moving forward in terms of the decision-making process and parameters around that, so that way it's very clear. So one thing we do not do well as a council, as an organization, in terms of the City of Pembroke, is communicate. We all know that. We did some training last week, and that was one of the big issues, was the communication issue. So we need to do better. We need to engage our partners, and I think having a smaller group of dedicated individuals out there, you know, tapping all the resources that they can, in unison pulling instead of pulling and pushing sometimes. I think, you know, we'll get there sooner than later. So this is a huge initiative, and I think, you know, P3 is one of the options that we can look at, but definitely there's pros and cons. I recognize that, but I think we need to continue this momentum and move forward. So, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Certainly support having a steering committee, as we know at the present moment, and I obtained a copy of the terms of reference. When we were originally only looking at an aquatics facility or aquatics wellness facility, we had terms of reference with what is the purpose, what is the mandate, and it was to get advice and recommendations to council in respect to aquatic health and wellness, and there was individuals assigned to it. As we know, there was individuals appointed to it. We generally met during the day. That ad hoc committee from time to time would seek input from other boards, other organizations, including school boards, other municipalities, to try and get their input. And I recognize, and I think we've talked about before as a council, is that if you're wanting other individuals, and by this I mean municipalities or boards and so forth, you got to engage them early on so that they can't throw up their hands and say, well, you didn't engage us in the beginning on the front end, so why would you want us to provide funds on the back end? And I do appreciate that. I do get that. At that, just for everyone's information, at those ad hoc committee meetings, and this, what I'm saying is of no slight to any of those boards or any of those municipalities. But in terms of the school boards, not one wanted to provide any funding, and I'm not, don't take me the wrong way when I say that. It may be that they wanted to, but didn't have the resources or so forth to do it. We did have Whitewater, so, because it's mentioned about Whitewater. Whitewater's mayor did attend at least 2 meetings, and I can say that I have a very good relationship with the mayor of Whitewater. He had a number of different pieces of information, such as, keep lobbying the provincial government. Eventually, they will open up funding, and you better be ready. And I talked last time about how they did open up a funding envelope for $200 million, which they still do not have indications of how you access the funds or what it looks like. So just to bring council up to date on that point. But when it came to, is there funding available from Whitewater, the answer was a very clear, don't look to us for funding. And I don't knock them for that. I know that they've got several different rinks because they're an amalgamated municipality, and we all hear in the media about the difficulties they're having with some of their facilities. So I don't, that's with no disrespect to Whitewater. I know they got their own challenges. And I know later on this evening, we're going to talk about asset management, which is one of the discussions then I had with Whitewater, is that they're doing the same thing. They have a whole bunch of infrastructure and it's underfunded, and they're trying to figure out how do they fund their aging infrastructure. And so I don't envy them, but I also know that we're dealing with the same challenges. In terms of other municipalities, and I'll say it publicly that the town of Petawawa has its own situation going on and so forth, and unless they have a change of heart, they aren't looking to assist the city of Pembroke in terms of what some dub a regional facility or whatever facility you want to call it. Which leaves the township of Laurentian Valley, and certainly in terms of some of the meetings that we had, effectively, they essentially weren't looking to provide any funding in respect to a new aquatics facility. Now, that was an aquatics facility. Maybe it changes things if you're trying to add different items to it. So it certainly can't hurt to ask, and I know that after last meeting, there was some discussion or part of the last meeting, some discussion in terms of if you're going to do certain studies that's being recommended by staff of looking at, is the rinks past their useful life, what does it look like, and you want to do a study. Some of the suggestions was, well, maybe you reach out to them and find out if they're willing to fund some of these things, and that can be done through the steering committee, no doubt. But if they say no to that, they're probably saying no then to providing any sort of funding in relation to whether it's a P3, whether it's an aquatics facility, and there's a decision to try and rejuvenate the PMC and PEMICE 2. But I guess what I'm trying to say is at those particular meetings, there was no warm, fuzzy feeling, at least from the representation that sat at that table from the Township of Laurentian Valley in respect to funding it. So I still have concerns about the P3, but I understand that, as was discussed at the last meeting through the consultant's report, you got to figure out what it is that you want. And so through the steering committee, you can figure out what is it you want, because they were shooting out rock walls and bowling alleys and all sorts of wonderful things. But if you can't afford to pay for it, so you need to figure out what that is. And so what is the appropriate method forward? And all I'm trying to say is that from the benefit of that other ad hoc committee, that if others don't want to step to the plate to assist, and others, again, I'll try and narrow it in, that it's municipalities, school boards, that sort of thing, then you're left with the city of Pembroke going it alone together with, and then I'll add this piece in, with groups such as the pool fundraising committee. So they changed their focus, and instead of trying to offset costs of the repairs to the current Kinsman pool, but they provide funding to assist with the construction. But that's, that to me, it's whether it's a pool or it's a multi-type of complex, it's going to take some funding from the community, because I don't see the population of 14,000 achieving it all on their own. And so that's no disrespect then to the individuals in other outlying municipalities. Maybe they need to speak to their councils and try and change certain views. But you gotta, to me, I see the benefit of a steering committee. I see engaging them early on. a little concerned if what I understand from the lengthy motion is that if the steering committee is only looking at a P3 as opposed to trying to express or review all of what this is and keeping an open mind as we move forward with that. So again, I have no issue with dissolving the Pembroke Aquatic Health and Wellness Center Oversight Ad Hoc Committee. I would think, I have no issue in terms of staff or others working on terms of reference as was done previously, because I got a feeling that was generated mostly by staff as opposed to the committee itself, because I can't see a committee creating its own terms of reference, which brings me to, in terms of who is appointed to it, I would think that that should go to the striking committee with recommendation from the mayor, and this council then determines who the three are, and I have no issue with three. You're not upsetting the apple cart with putting four or more on there. But all that to say that, so certainly I support having a steering committee, figuring out what your scope is, because that was very clear from the consultant's report. And then the challenge is going to be funding, but if you engage the, what I believe is who you're trying to engage is Laurentian Valley early on, and seeing what their appetite is. And that engagement, I would have thought early on, has to be an indication not to be off-putting, but to say, okay, it's not just to come and attend meetings and give your idea of having squash courts and other things. It's more than that. If you're coming to the meetings, you also have to be in it. You have to own what it is that we're trying to say moving forward, as opposed to being there for providing input but not providing the end of funding, because I think that's, I think it's an honest, realistic concern that is there appropriate funding on that end of it too. I think that's all of the different comments that I wanted to make. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jacno?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A lot of strong points in the motion. As the mayor had said, we have attempted to encounter the other municipalities with some, saying, no, we can't do it. We understand that. They have their own, their bailiwick to deal with. The fact with Laurentian Valley at the table, I think that's a good thing. We've made a lot of strides in the last couple of years, and I think that's your responsibility, Councillor Lafernia. You got together with that committee to look at the rates, et cetera. You had to drag them kicking and screaming to the table, but I think once they understood what we're going through, and I think they're coming to the realization of what it costs to run a facility of that nature. Besides using it, giving you a quarter and going home and using your barbecue, having your hamburger, they have to step up to the plate and realistically look at the real costs. We're not expecting them to pay for all of it, but we expect them to do their due diligence and pay their proportional share. The volunteer committee, I mean, they're exceptional. I think they're out there raising money. And the money that's being donated, I'm sure, is not just from people in Pembroke. They got to be people from Petawawa that use our pool. I talked to a lady, they don't go to the Petawawa pool. They live in Petawawa. They come here. They said because there's structured swimming classes, et cetera. You never know on the base if there's an exercise, the pool is closed. It's used for military participation. So they can't always rely on that. They want something that's structured where they can go to and use, and they don't mind paying the amount. And I have to recognize that, a lot of that funding that's being raised isn't just coming from here. It's probably from people from Laurentian Valley, Petawawa, Cobden area. And I mean, we had a lady here from Quebec beyond Campbell's Bay saying, don't close my pool. She lives beyond Campbell's Bay and comes here to use the pool. So that shows that it truly, there's a magnet for people to come and use that facility. Weekend before last, I was in North Bay. And I met with a gentleman that I've known for many years. He's an executive member, and he has the order of the YMCA, which was presented to him by the Governor General. And I ran it by him in a casual conversation. I said, what a YMCA pool / gym / therapeutic pool work in the city of Pembroke? North Bay is 50,000 people. And his answer to me was absolutely, it would work. He said, but now the implications are who builds the place? I guess we build it. Who looks after it? They look after it. Then it's out of our sphere. We're not worried about the, you know, the cost of whatever. They're looking after it. And it's working in North Bay, and he wouldn't understand why it wouldn't work here. I said, well, we're a smaller population. He said, Ed, you draw 50,000 people. They come to your community to shop. They come here to use the restaurants. You know, they come here. So in that vein, you know, establishing a swimming program rate, et cetera. And I mean, you can go online and look at the North Bay pool. I look there and I see that here. But I mean, the 3P issue as well, not issue, but the proposal or the opportunity, maybe something where we could amalgamate all these things together. And I had a rather, you know, I know that Laurentian Valley's come forward with, I think $400,000 they're willing to support. But if I read it correctly, I think they said, well, we're going to give you 400 grand, but if the fundraisers raise 400 grand, we're not giving you anything. Would I be correct in that, or did I misread that somewhere? I thought I saw that their contribution would be based on,
Would you like to respond to that, CAO?
if you have an answer, sorry.
Yep, yeah, through the chair. So the way that the funding is working with regards to the repairs is, so I'll just throw out numbers because it's easier to work with. So if we have, say, $1.3 million in regards to the repairs, say that the Friends of the Regional Pool provide $150,000. No, I'm going to make my math complicated here. And so you're left with $1.15 million. Then that would be split between us and Laurentian Valley. So, so they would not necessarily give 400,000. Possibly they could give a little bit less, but it wouldn't be that if the fundraising raises 400, that Laurentian Valley gets zero. No, it's a proportion of what's left over of the funding amount. Hopefully that clarifies it.
Thank you, I stand corrected. Anyway, it's good to look at these things. I like what you're saying, but sometimes the more people you have around the table, you have a revolution. You know, because you have to have a certain group of people. There's got to be some strong leadership. The person's got to lead, and the other people have to maybe they can contribute. But I mean, you know, if you have 100 people in a room, 100 people have 100 different opinions. It does not work. But from the standpoint of one person from each organization, I don't have a problem with that.
So if there's no other, Deputy Mayor wants to speak, and then I'd like to indulge me by speaking from the chair. Thank you.
So we had our treasurer is coming tonight with a report on asset management, who she's been working very hard with on her and her co-worker. And we had a meeting the other day, Councillor Giacono and I asked her, I said, how much does the PMC need and PMX2 over the next 20 years? And the answer's around $15 million in repairs. So when she presented her report in September, I did some research and I made a few phone calls and I thought about the public-private partnership, as did other councillors. So I made the motion and it got accepted, and here we are now, moving it forward. But the key word here is public-private partnership is a funding model. If you take that out, you have the word sportsplex. And every growing community is building a sportsplex. Georgina Township down in Keswick, Russell Township is building an $88 million facility. North Bay is building a new facility, and they got $25.78 million from the Canada Green and Inclusive Community Building Fund. If we have a sportsplex together, the chances of getting a grant are greater. We have 41,000 people, Petawawa, Laurentian Valley, Pembroke, plus the outlying areas. So we have a catchment area of 75,000. And the thing about the public-private partnership, we can't go out and borrow $80 million for a facility to debenture. The province of Ontario won't allow it. It's beyond our capability. So that's why we're studying the private-public partnership model, where they finance it, And there would be negative cash flows in the beginning, but I'm sure it would not be $15 million. We're at a crossroads now in our recreation programming and facilities for Pembroke. We have aging infrastructure. We do not have a pool. We're going to repair the pool, and I commend the friends of the regional pool, and some of them are here tonight. We need to work with them. We need to communicate with them. They need to be part of the committee on an ongoing support. And once they raise their money for the pool, we can sit down, and during that P3 process with the steering committee, if the P3 doesn't work out, do we circle back and build a standalone pool? But the reason the P3 motion was accepted by council, one of the ones, I can't speak for council, but speaking for myself, was to save the pool. It's more economical to have a pool with other facilities like arenas and second ice pad and AstroTurf and whatever else you want to add, with one heating and cooling plant in one location, than a standalone pool. And when the private sector get involved and the private sector P3 consortium have the experience to build and save money for a possible pool. The treasurer will tell you tonight that Parks and Recreation would like to see garage space and office space because they have nowhere to put their vehicles. Well, if we did the P3 and start a conversation, if we do the final RFP, that could be added to the facility. So there's many things, there's many unknowns. Lump sum payment, ice time, priced out of market, those, no P3 is going to come in and price ice time out of the market. Lump sum payment, in my discussions and research, some companies don't have a lump sum payment. There's negative cash flow in the beginning, but once you get rolling, there's not a lump sum payment at the end. Milestone payment, city staff, it's possible to contract out services to a P3 consortium. So this is going to start a conversation. We don't know. We're going down this road, and we need to figure out what it's going to cost, what does the community want. So that's why we're going to have the town halls, work with the Friends of the Regional Pool, work with our neighboring townships, and say what's the consensus here, what do we want, get a cost figure, and then hopefully issue an RFP. And if it doesn't work out, then we come back to where we are. But it's our only time in Pembroke now that we have the opportunity to say, hey, here's a vision, let's build a sportsplex to grow our community, to save dollars, everything will be under one area, and it'll progress the community. We talked about attracting doctors here. Well, that's the first thing they look for, is a sportsplex. What do you have for my children? And that's what they want. Our seniors need space. I know Laurentian Valley have talked about they need gym space. So that's something that can be discussed. But I think the key word here is community. It's not just Pembroke, it's Laurentian Valley, it's Petawawa. If they don't provide any funding, there's programming dollars. Laurentian Valley have a recreation agreement with us. They don't have an arena. They don't have a pool. So they're going to need to swim somewhere. So these are the options that we have. But I echo what Councillor Purcell said, and I received emails too and had meetings with the committee, some of the members of the Friends of the Regional Pool. It's important we work with them, and I want to thank them for all they're doing, and we fundraise, help them fundraise and everything we do as a partnership. But I'll support the motion. I think it puts the onus on the steering committee and moving forward, and then we invite Laurentian Valley and Whitewater and keep the conversation going. So we have to move forward. We just can't stall. And I like the December 1st timeline because things take too long. And let's get on with it and see where we are and then go from there. And I encourage everyone tomorrow night to go to the Algonquin College and see is that the final report or the draft, is that the final report of the Recreation Master Plan?
So through the chair, yeah, so it's open to the public for the draft recommendations.
Right, okay. And we do know from when August, there was mention of a multifaceted sportsplex. That's what people were looking for. So we need to move forward. We need to involve the community, town halls, our fundraising friends and work together and get this thing going, and let's see where the vision takes us.
Thank you. Just a few words. I agree with the mayor. I think number one, we have to find out who is in this with us for the long haul. Before we start having meetings with lots of people, we have to say who wants in. It's not going to happen right away. We have a pool that's being repaired. We do have some time to work on this. But first and foremost, who's going to come to the table and help us fund? If they're not, well, then we have to reduce the scope of the project and live within our means. We have a great fundraising group who want to know all these answers too. So we need to cut to the chase, decide who's in and who isn't, because then we have to look at user fees in a serious way going forward. If people are not going to invest in what we're investing in, well, then all agreements should be renegotiated for the new facilities if we move forward. So anyway, two things. Who's in it for the long haul? That's what I'd like this committee to get to right away. You can't sit and tell us what you want unless you want to pay. And then what scope? Then we can decide the scope. And I hope that the individuals that are sitting around this table have the expertise that I have seen in this fundraising committee. I hope that they will bring that to the table to try to engage partners. I also want to see individuals that have procurement experience, construction experience. I would love to see Councillor Plummer sit on this committee. I, for one, we built our own home, but as you said, it's different. I know how much I have. I know what I want. I built it to scale. I wasn't worried about asking the neighbor down the street, hey, do you want to use my bathroom once in a while and chip in on the house? Like, it didn't work like that. So I just want people at the table that know what they're doing, expertise. Okay? So I guess, do we need a motion? I guess we have a motion, and we have a seconder. So I will call the question. Yes, what final question?
Do we not know at present who is with us and who is not with us? Or do we continue to ask them for perpetuity to find out we're going to get the same answer? Are we spinning our wheels? We know Petawawa doesn't want to be part of it. We know that Whitewater has indicated to the mayor's worship that they don't have the wherewithal to support it. So where do we go with that? Do we continue to bombard them with requests to join us? I don't know where we're going with that. I would like to know that before the
Okay.
motion is approved.
So in my experience, yes, we have asked, and basically the last answer I got was, Pembroke, decide what you'd like to do. We're not promising any money, but decide what you want to do, and then we'll decide later what we can afford. But in all fairness, our neighbors did come to the table to help us repair this. That's awesome. But I think we need to have that serious conversation one more time and say, we can't build a facility on your needs unless we have you as an equal financial partner, and then we can move forward to decide what we want. We do not have any firm commitments. In answer to your question, we have the City of Pembroke and we have the Friends of the Pool. And really, they're waiting to decide where we're going with this too. Like, is it going to be a P3? Is it going to be just a pool? Is it going to,
Just quickly, I would suggest too that although this motion is a starting point, if another partner came through, or if one of the partners that we think we want to approach doesn't come through, I believe we would have the power to amend our own committee structure and whatnot. But we have to start somewhere. I guess what Councillor Plummer and I were saying, talking about before the meeting, I don't want to be chasing people around for 4 months just to get the committee started. So we propose that the City of Pembroke be on it, the Township of Laurentian Valley. I think generally speaking, they tell us there's an interest, and certainly they came to the table with the pool. The Township of Whitewater region, I do hear the mayor's comments. They're, presumably about to lose 2 arenas, so we thought they might want to come to the table. But I wouldn't suggest to this council that I think that the committee that we're saying tonight is necessarily going to be the committee if others want to come on board or somebody wants to get off board, but we need to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm saying. I'm not afraid to amend the structure if we start going down the road, but we have to get onto the road, is my thought, and I think the mayor maybe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no, to Councillor Keel's point, if some other organization or municipality or whoever came forward, I certainly wouldn't say no to them. If CNL or OPG or whoever came forward and said, we want, I have no issue with that. What my issue is as Councillor Lafreniere is articulating, I'm trying not to be negative. I recognize, and I am appreciative that Laurentian Valley came to the plate in terms of, assisting with the funding for the current facility to give it some longevity while we continue to do this. What my concern is, at least, I'll say it this way, at least, and I appreciate Mayor Nicholson when he's forthright. And so it's like, are you in or are you out? And so, to Councillor Lafreniere's comment, do you not, in a roundabout way, ask that question? Not in a roundabout way. Right at the gate, it's, are you in or you're out? And being in means that you're going to, we don't know what the dollar amount is. We don't even know what the dollar amount is yet. Got some pretty different indications, but are you in or you're out? And if the answer is no, we can't afford it, like one of the comments, and Councillor Lafreniere was at that meeting, is unless you get a sizable grant, don't even look at us. Well, if that's the indication, then to me, you're out. And so why are you providing input as to you want squash courts or whatever it was, some sort of gymnasium thing? So again, I'm supportive of the steering committee, but I think right out of the gate, it's, are you in or you're out? And at least municipalities like Petawawa and Whitewater said, not in. And it's like, okay, well, fair enough, you're not in. And I appreciate that. They're being honest and forthright. But certainly if someone wants to come on at any given time and says, we're in, which is what we're looking for, we're in, we're willing to give to a tune of whatever, well, then you're in. I have no problem with that.
Would the mayor like to start then by just the steering committee of the 3 Pembroke people, and then that committee makes the approaches, and then we decide what outsiders are in?
Okay, so it would be my thought that we have a similar committee that we had before, and we do invite representative from Laurentian Valley and the partners that we initially tried to engage, and we lay it all out. And we say, this is what we're looking at, this is what we need. We need people to share this capital debenture, to know where we're going. And then we can develop plans and look for grants. We can't apply for grants unless we have a shovel-ready plan. And I'm certainly not going to build a shovel-ready plan that's going to cost us $60 million if no one else is going to help us pay. So yes, I would say invite everybody in, have a very candid conversation, and get them to commit. And I just want to add one final note, because this is taking a long time. I know staff wants direction. Laurentian Valley already does pay a significant amount. So if they look at what they're already contributing annually, 30% of operating, and they have a cap on capital of 30, if they look at what they're already taking and contribute it to the new project, if we were to build all these facilities, the costs probably will go down because we're not going to be operating. The builder will, or whatever. I don't know the proper terminology for all this P3 stuff. But all I'm saying is they already spend money. We're just asking them to spend a little more, build nice facilities. So yeah, invite them all, and then we will say, okay, if they can't give us a guarantee by a certain date, we have to move forward and start to make our plans. So that is my opinion. Okay, call the question. All in favor? It is carried. Thank you for all your input. Okay. Okay. Asset management plan, non-core assets, fun. I want to thank the individuals that were in the audience from our fundraising Friends of the Pool. Thank you for being here. Good evening, Angela. Whenever you're ready.
Good evening and thank you. Joining me tonight is Jennifer Belair, the city's financial planning analyst, and tonight we're going to present an overview of the city's asset management plan. So distributed in your package is the plan itself. So upon committee and council approval, we will be getting this made accessible and posted on our website. But tonight we have presented, because it is a substantial report, we have kind of developed a Coles Notes version of the plan that we'll review with council, with committee tonight. So we'll get started. So a bit of background. The goal of asset management and the reason why we plan for the care and replacement of our assets is to provide defined levels of service and monitor performance. We want to make sure that we manage the impact of growth in a smart way through demand management and infrastructure investments. We want to always take a long-term life cycle approach to managing our assets, which support cost-effective strategies that meet the service objectives that we set for our assets. We want to identify, assess, and appropriately control our risks. And we want to link these objectives to a long-term financial plan, which identifies and forecasts out the required level of affordable costs for the city. So there are lots of benefits to good asset management. It improves our decision-making, the way we allocate our resources, and the way we deliver services to the community in a consistent and reliable way. It improves the overall understanding and communications of the challenges that the city may have, the choices we need to make, and the shared responsibilities. It helps provide a better appreciation of costs and the true value of our local services that the city provides. And it helps us manage risk, avoids crisis, similar to the closure of the pool as we saw, and reduces volatility. So asset management planning across all municipalities in Ontario is a regulatory requirement, and that regulation is set under 588/17 Asset Management Planning for Municipal Infrastructure. So the city, there is a number of phases under this regulation which every municipality must meet. On July 1st, 2022, the city was required to prepare an asset management plan for all core infrastructure, which included water, wastewater, stormwater assets, roads, bridges, and culverts. So this is currently posted on the city's website. So tonight we're looking at the next phase of asset management that's required by July 1st, 2024, which covers all non-core assets. So this would include everything else, essentially parks, buildings, fleet. And in our case, we separated out parking lots. And following this non-core piece, our goal for July 1st, 2025 is to basically bring these two separate plans together into one cohesive plan that looks at not only the levels of service we currently provide, but where we're going and what are our proposed levels of service, and to ensure that we have a long-term financial strategy to support our plans and objectives. So there are a variety of roles in asset management planning. Council has the role to initiate asset management and provide financial stewardship to the assets the city owns and maintains. Council represents the community. They set the levels of service. They approve the asset management plans and policies developed and recommended by staff. These are reviewed regularly and executed through the approval of our annual budget and the allocation of different resources. Myself, as a staff lead for asset management, I develop and monitor asset management progress. So I lead the development of policies and plans. I initiate and implement asset management practices, and I report on our progress and results. Senior staff have the responsibility to implement the asset management plan. They have oversight and leadership responsibility. They have to make sure they identify the risks and the consequences to their operations. They have to ensure that they're requesting sufficient resources to meet the levels of service. They make recommendations to council, and they manage their budgets based on the life cycle activities that we should be following. Departmental staff participate in the process, utilizing the processes that we set. They implement and maintain levels of service, and they track, analyze, and report on our asset management program through this process. And the community has a role as well. So the community, it's important for the community to engage in setting and communicating their expectations, to participate in public engagement opportunities, and provide feedback on the types of services that they want, and certainly in line with what they can afford to pay. So our non-core asset report structure is divided, again, between buildings, excluding water, wastewater assets, which would include the 2 plants, the water tower, the lift stations, and the quarry reservoir. This non-core asset management plan includes fleet, which is vehicles and equipment. It includes our parking lots, as well as parks and outdoor recreation assets. So, and as per the regulation, the city has to prepare a consolidated asset management plan that includes all assets together by July 1st, 2025. Certainly undertaking this non-core asset report involved a significant level of effort on the part of staff. With Jennifer and under Jennifer's leadership, we have a number of people we'd like to thank. So certainly from the operations department, key contributors were Jason Robinson, our chief mechanic, Paul Champagne, the supervisor of roads and fleet. On the recreation side, Jordan DeRoche, our recreation director, Mr. Joe Brown, our Parks and Rec supervisor, as well as Joanne Shute, provided key inputs. And of course, we can't forget our fire chief, Scott Sell, and our mechanic, Daryl Andrews, who also provided key input into the plan. So the asset management report breaks down for each class of assets, so that's parks, buildings, fleet, and parking lots, the state of its current infrastructure, so we describe how many assets we own, what its replacement cost is, the age of the assets, if we have that data, as well as its condition. We look at the current levels of service that we want to provide and whether or not we meet that or not. We identify risks and risk management strategies. We identify key activities that we need to undertake for life cycle management for these asset classes. And something a little different to the core asset management plan, we have provided some initial financial information in terms of identifying, based on the information we have today, what our forecasted financial requirements are for the next 10 years against current funding levels that we have in the 2024 budget and historically have spent over the past several years. And for every asset management class, we do identify how we want to monitor and improve our asset management plan going forward. So I will explain a little bit about our methodology for some of these different areas in the next couple of slides. So in terms of levels of service, staff have developed a framework where we link how we manage our assets to our strategic plan and the corporate values that are in our vision, mission, and objective. So what do we mean when we talk about levels of service? Levels of service ultimately link back to the mission, vision, and priorities set by council and reflect what's important to our community. So as part of this strategy approved by council, it is our vision to support a welcoming, vibrant community which offers services and amenities that enhance sustainable and healthy lifestyles. From an asset management point of view, that can include developing excellent partnerships, ensuring that our overall infrastructure is in good condition, that we are operating in a sustainable manner from both a financial, environmental, and human perspective, and that we respect some underlying principles, which include utilizing a climate lens in our decision-making process. So if we break this down into corporate values from an asset management perspective, again, we can see some keywords popping out. We want to offer sustainable services that promote a welcoming, healthy community. So we need to have services that are available, so that includes the scope of services that we offer in a reliable manner. We want to be a welcoming community, so we want our assets to be clean, comfortable, accessible, and support EDI. We want to promote a healthy community, so we want assets that are healthy and safe. We want to operate in a way that's financially sustainable and is also affordable to our residents. And at the same time, we want to be environmentally responsible, and we want to minimize our impact on the environment and be resilient to climate change. So if we take those concepts and kind of feed it into a levels of service framework, in addition to meeting the legislated requirements for our assets, so for example, our roads have to be operated and maintained with respect to minimum maintenance standards. We also should be linking our assets to our corporate levels of service and our strategic priorities, which we've identified as offering appropriate infrastructure renewal and sustainable services that support healthy lifestyles, environmentally sustainable, looking at them through a climate lens. We want to make sure that we consider growth and accessibility and other EDI considerations, and that we look to long-term financial planning and the partnerships we have within our community. So we're translating that into community levels of service and technical levels of service. We have sort of 4 main categories. We want to make sure our assets are high quality and reliable, that are responsive to our customers, and are maintained in adequate condition. We want to make sure they function so they're there when customers need it, while limiting health, safety, security, environmental aspects. We want to make sure that we have capacity and good use for our facilities, so services have sufficient capacity and are accessible and available to everyone. And finally, that our assets are financially sustainable and that our services are offered, the services that we offer are affordable and provided at the lowest cost for both our current and future customers. So through that, we also need to look at these different categories through a lens of risk. We need to make sure we're considering all of the life cycle activities that are required for our assets in terms of operating them, maintaining them, renewing them, upgrading them to address growth, new requirements, service changes, and linking all of those costs into our operating budgets and our capital budgets. And while we can't, eliminate all the risks, we certainly want to ensure that, we're not exposing the municipality to an unnecessary level of risk. So for this version of the report, we were only required to provide one measure for levels of service. So in this iteration of the report, we have focused on the quality and condition of assets as well as any health and safety objectives. But over the next year, staff will be developing additional measures for approval by council to ensure that our assets are managed and aligned within our strategic priorities. So an example of this could be, if we want to offer and manage our assets in an environmentally responsible and sustainable way. For buildings, we might want to have measures that kind of limit our energy and water usage and our emission of greenhouse gas. For active transportation, we might want to consider measures that look at, the quantity and kilometers that we may want to offer in the future. For public parking, we may want to consider storm drainage and the impact of climate change, as well as maintaining green spaces. For parks, we might want to look at our tree canopy and maintaining or perhaps expanding that. For streetlights, again, we want to make sure we're minimizing our energy usage. And for vehicles and equipment, we might want to consider setting goals related to electrification of fleet and looking at minimizing our greenhouse gas emissions with the fleet we do require. So every asset category also looks at risk and establishing a risk rating. So effective asset management includes identifying, assessing, and appropriately controlling risk to ensure reliable service delivery. So in this asset management plan, a risk rating for assets has been obtained by multiplying the probability of failure of a particular asset with the consequence of failure. So the probability of failure in most cases is determined by the condition of the asset, while the consequence of failure was based on a matrix that involved looking at it from a service delivery point of view, a health and safety point of view, an environmental point of view, and the impact to city finances. So typically what you'll see in the different sections is that high-risk assets are typically those that are in poor condition, whose failure directly impacts the ability to offer services, that pose a significant health, safety, or an environmental risk, or have a large impact to city finances. So at a minimum, assets rated in high-risk categories should be considered as high-priority items within each budget cycle. And in this report, assets identified in the higher risk categories have been either included in the 2024 budget or will be brought forward for discussion with applicable city department heads as part of the 2025 budget process. So again, our assets have to be managed in a way that manages the asset throughout its whole life cycle to maximize operational efficiencies and minimize cost. So life cycle activities for assets reflect a set of planned actions performed on assets to achieve levels of service targets at the lowest overall cost. So these activities have to be planned for and included in annual budgets to ensure service standards are met and risks are mitigated. So again, this ensures cost effectiveness and sets a foundation for annual budgets. So again, in each section of our report, we do identify what are some key life cycle management activities for each class of asset. And in this plan, life cycle management activities are grouped into what we need to do to inspect them and assess them, to operate and maintain them, what we need to do in terms of capital activities, short-term needs, and how we plan to address growth in a particular category. And for every asset class, we also assess the current financial situation. So this next slide explains a bit how to interpret the graph. So for each asset class, a graph is provided which compares the city's current budget for operating and capital to forecasted requirements over the next 10 years. And the 10-year period is considered to be from 2024 to 2033. So the blue bar that's shown in the graph shows what current operating spending is for the city based on the 2024 budget. The gray bar shows current capital spending based on a 3-year average. And the yellow line shows the forecasted requirements over the next 10 years for discussion purposes and does include some potential investments in new assets. So in every class, we do have a graph that looks at each asset group to see where we currently sit. And finally, our report does include areas to monitor and improve in developing our asset management maturity. So asset management maturity measures the integration of good asset management into day-to-day activities of the city, as opposed to strictly doing this because we have to meet regulatory requirements. So FCM, which is the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, has developed an asset management maturity measure through their asset management readiness scale. And we often are required to report on what our asset maturity is in various grant applications. So our asset management data continues to evolve and change and requires constant updates. So next steps in terms of data updating and additional information required is identified in each section. And again, this is to ensure that our asset management continues to evolve and mature and become more, we become more confident in its recommendations. So I'm now going to hand it off to Jennifer, who will go over the state of infrastructure for our fleet.
So the first category is fleet, which consists of vehicles and equipment, and it's broken down by service area. So it includes a description of the type of vehicles in each department, along with their quantity, average age, and the estimated replacement cost. So since age information was available for all vehicles, the condition rating for each asset is based on the percentage of service life remaining. Going forward, we will consider whether an assessed condition would be more accurate to determine replacement cycle for certain assets due to usage rather than age. And as you can see, the condition of vehicles is fairly spread out, which will be beneficial when looking at a replacement schedule. And this table just shows the equipment by department, and again with their quantity, average age, and replacement costs. So levels of service for fleet within the quality and reliability states that all vehicles have an average condition rating of fair or better. So we are meeting this with an average condition of fair. And under health and safety, our commercial fleet and fire apparatus meet their inspection requirements. So this table ties the asset's condition to the probability of it failing. So a very good condition equals a rare probability of failure. The probability multiplied by the consequence of failure provides the risk rating. So this table illustrates the asset replacement cost within its risk rating. For each asset class, we have identified the assets in the appendices with their condition and risk rating. For example, the 2 ice resurfacers are past their estimated service life, which gives them a very likely rating for likelihood of failure. This, combined with the large impact a failure would have to service delivery, puts them in the red section of this table. And as we noted, high-risk assets have been included in the 2024 budget for replacement or will be considered for inclusion in the 2025 budget.
So what this slide does is essentially show what, like, the dollar values associated with our high-risk replacements. And as Ms. Belair mentioned, the items in red have either been identified for replacement in the 2024 budget or will be included for consideration in the 2025 budget. There are 2 ice resurfacers that are on the critical list because if they go down, we will not be able to operate our arenas. There are only 2 replacement vehicles that we can rent in the province of Ontario, and that's subject to their availability. So it does put our service at risk if we don't replace these assets, which is why they're in that category. And again, as mentioned, in the appendices of our report, we have provided tables of our assets for every class, and we have color-coded them for ease, so you can see if something is high risk or not. You know, we have color-coded between the green, yellow, orange, and red, just for easier identification. So, and we will be linking this back to our 2025 budget analysis. So in terms of the current financial situation, over the 10-year planning periods from 2024 to 2033, the city currently budgets and sets aside approximately $772,000 a year, or roughly $7.7 million over the 10-year period for fleet replacement, against an estimated capital renewal requirement of $9.4 million. So this leaves us with a gap of roughly $1.7 million, and this has been the result of significant and ongoing inflation post-COVID, and will need to be replaced and addressed, I should say, quickly in future year budgets. So as we can see from the graph, the available funding versus the yellow line, which is the funding that we're going to need if we're going to do age-based replacements, there's quite a gap in there over the next several years. And currently, our annual operating budget of $824,000 is considered sufficient to maintain our fleet. So as part of the analysis for fleet, we did, with staff, go over the replacement cost of every single piece of fleet and equipment based on our current assessment of replacement cost in today 2024 standards, and this has left, unfortunately, a gap. So as we can see on this next table, currently the approach with fleet from a financial point of view is that the city contributes annually to departmental fleet reserves based on the calculation of current estimated replacement cost divided by the asset's useful life. So with replacement costs updated across the entire fleet, we do have a gap in our annual funding that we provide to reserve of about $245,000. So again, we will need to address this over future budget years. I will say that the fire gap of $84,000 was a known gap because that's related to the aerial ladder truck, which has increased significantly to a $4 million replacement. So we have been slowly increasing our contributions in the fire budget to the fleet reserve, but the roads increase was unexpected, and that will have to be addressed in the next year's budget. And unfortunately, we have, just as we were wrapping this up, found out that we have, I believe, a sweeper whose cost is even higher than what we predicted in our schedule based on a recent demo. So the bad news continues. So now we move over to our parks and outdoor facilities. And again, I'll pass it back to Ms. Belair.
So on this slide and the next, we did compile an asset inventory for the city's park features. Although reliable age data was not available for many of the park features, we will continue to gather this information and include it in the next iteration. So again, it lists the quantity, the unit cost, and the estimated replacement cost. So since age-related data was not available, we did assess the condition based on a visual assessment by the city's Parks and Recreation Department using the 5-point scale. Currently, the condition of these features are in good condition, which is ideal given the general public's use of these assets and the associated liability. And in terms of levels of service, under quality and reliability, park features have an average condition rating of fair or better, which we are meeting with a condition of good on average. And the playgrounds are inspected every 6 weeks while the park is open, so they meet the level of service under health and safety. So because of their overall good condition, there aren't any in the orange or red currently. So this table illustrates the asset replacement cost by risk rating.
And that's my cue to talk about financial situation. So as mentioned, our assets are in good condition. We have been replacing this equipment as and when needed. Over the 10-year planning period, the city currently budgets roughly $3.2 million in operating and maintenance costs, which is considered sufficient to maintain our assets. Renewal of almost $800,000 is expected over the next 10 years. And for discussion purposes in this plan, we have included some new park features of $490,000, which overall creates a small funding gap of roughly $50,000, which in comparison to other asset categories is manageable. The planned acquisition of new park features, again, included for discussion purposes for this 10-year plan, includes continuing drainage works at the Riverside Park Ball Diamonds of roughly $375,000, a small city portion contribution for skate park lighting, as well as the consideration of transforming the waterfront park play structure into an accessible playground feature, which would essentially double that budget. However, grant funding may be available when we decide to, if council is supportive of this, when the time comes to help finance accessible playground equipment and other features at that particular location. So age-related data will continue to be sought to help support asset management planning. So all this to say, we do anticipate perhaps needing to tweak our asset management plan in this area over time as we continue to monitor its condition. And we will work to continue to ensure that all significant park assets have been captured in the city's asset management plan, because questions still remain about street furniture and whether or not some of those features are part of the roads budget. Is that part of the recreation budget? So we do have where does the line get drawn type questions related to some of the underlying data. And our next category is public parking.
So the parking lots are captured in the asset management plan as either public parking lots or those that service a city park or building. And we have also broken them up by paved and unpaved to establish the condition and replacement costs. So there's a list there of which ones we're including in each section. Age data is unavailable for parking lot substructure and surface due to combining them with other road projects. Asset condition is based on a visual assessment by the roads department using a 5-point scale. So these two graphs illustrate the condition based on surface area. The unpaved parking lot in poor condition is the PACC parking lot compared to the much smaller Lake and College lot next to the PMC overflow. It is noted that parking lots with poor or very poor condition have created liability impacts, which impacts insurance costs. So due to those potential liabilities, the city should be maintaining all parking lots at a condition of fair or better, which we're currently meeting. Council will need to determine if all parking lots should be paved to ensure quality and reliability, or if a lower standard is acceptable for unpaved parking lots as a budget management strategy. The table illustrates the parking lots that need to be considered in the near future. So in the red, you can see the Market Square parking lot, the west section. So its condition is very poor and the risk rating is very high. And City Hall parking lot is in a condition of poor with a risk rating of high.
So it was interesting looking at this data because Jennifer presented, so she worked quite closely with our road supervisor, Paul Champagne, to assess the condition. And I was like, the City Hall parking lot's not that bad. And then I started to actually look at it. And it's like, oh, it is uneven. And there is like areas where the pavement's breaking up. And so it was, even for myself, it was an interesting exercise of, you know, it's funny how you don't see things unless you're really looking at them. Certainly over the 10-year planning period, the city currently budgets roughly $2.6 million in operating and maintenance costs against a requirement of $2.7 million. So we do see a gap in operating funding of about $50,000, and that's simply because we don't really take a proactive maintenance approach on our parking lots, like crack sealing and pothole repairs, which could extend useful life. And so this will need to be considered in future budgets. Over the 10-year planning period, the city currently budgets and sets aside $20,000 a year. So this is a fairly new addition to our budget, which would generate, you know, roughly $200,000 over 10 years for capital improvements to our parking lot inventory. And that's compares to an estimated renewal requirement of roughly $700,000, as well as an estimated $729,000 to upgrade the PACC parking lot to a paved service, should that be the direction of council. So this capital gap of $1.2 million would need to be addressed in future year budgets. If the PACC upgrade was excluded, then this gap would be reduced to roughly $500,000. And if the city was to contribute annually in a similar manner to how we contribute to reserves for fleet, then this means we should be setting aside and contributing roughly $227,000 per year into a parking lot reserve to fund replacement. So closing this reserve contribution gap, if that's the direction from council, will certainly need to be considered in upcoming budget years. And again, when we get into, you know, prioritizing our plans in conjunction with core assets, we'll certainly need to discuss the PACC parking lot again. We had done some preliminary designs for upgrading that parking lot, addressing drainage concerns and paving that parking lot. However, it is going to represent a significant financial investment, and we'll have to ask, you know, can we afford that? Are we willing to accept a slightly lower level of service in that particular parking lot to save money and be able to address other priorities in the plan? And I apologize because my eye is not happy right now. Okay, so that brings us to buildings and our final category in our non-core asset management plan.
So we broke the buildings down into general, protection, recreation and culture, and transportation. And we've listed them out. So some of them are excluded if they were already included in the core AMP in 22. So that would be the two plants and the lift stations. A third party has provided the city with building condition assessments that breaks down the building components and projects related to them. It also provides an overall facility condition index, or FCI, that is calculated by dividing the cost of immediate building repairs with the building's replacement value. So this graph shows you based on the building itself and the condition. So in terms of levels of service, we are currently not meeting a level of service that identifies 60% of buildings should have an FCI of fair or better. We are meeting a functional health and safety level of service that all staffed facilities are inspected monthly. So this risk rating is a little different than the other sections. So it is looking at the components of the building and not the building itself. So the costs in each of these areas are certain components that need to be replaced over time. The probability of a building component failure and the consequence rating is based on the building condition assessment as well, that was completed by a third-party consultant.
So what we can see from the risk management as sort of some takeaways, just because we don't see a lot of assets in the high-risk category, that ultimately it's the age of the buildings and the backlog of general age-related maintenance that's driving our costs, and not necessarily high-impact, high-risk repairs that need to happen, at least as it's been rated by external consultants. So over the 10-year planning period, the city currently budgets roughly $23 million in operating and maintenance costs against a requirement of $23.5 million. So this roughly $500,000 gap is due to the current need for additional pool maintenance staff to support pool operations operating 6 or 7 days a week, obviously once the pool reopens. We can see a fairly significant gap in the graph between what's required and what we currently fund, which we have been aware of in previous presentations on our building portfolio. So our aging building infrastructure, certainly from an operating cost point of view, will likely place additional maintenance and repair pressures, which can be difficult to assess in this analysis. So future budgets should likely include a general contingency line to address any unexpected building component failures, which, if it's not required to be used in a given year, could be transferred to a building reserve fund. Over the 10-year planning period, renewal of roughly $27 million is expected based on the current condition of existing building components. So compared to historical spending levels of roughly $12.5 million, this represents a funding gap of $14.8 million. So for discussion purposes, potential new assets of $3.8 million have been included in the package to address gaps identified by staff. Ultimately, it will be up to council to determine how well this fits into other priorities, other needs, and affordability. That would include the Parks Garage of roughly $2.7 million. The fire department has requested previously an additional garage for fireboat and equipment, which we've estimated at this point to be $750,000. That would be a very rough estimate. The City Hall is currently experiencing issues with having insufficient office space, so we do anticipate over the next 10 years to have to continue to develop adding some additional space for staff. And as well, currently the operations summer students work out of the boardroom, which limits boardroom space at operations. So we do anticipate over the 10-year period to require some small investment in additional office space in that particular location. So if we add this to the replacement of existing building components, this would put a pressure on the city of roughly $18.6 million over the next 10 years. And obviously, council feedback, as I mentioned, would be required as we kind of move on to the next step of this plan, which is to set our priorities, set our service expectations for each asset category, and develop a long-term financial plan that we can afford as part of our July 1st, 2025 asset management plan requirements. So certainly, as I was looking at, so at the back of the actual non-core asset management plan report itself, we have included an annex for buildings, and it does compare the replacement cost as identified by the consultant who prepared the building condition assessment to their estimate of cost for immediate repair needs for the facility, short-term repair needs for the facility for the years 2025 to 28, and medium-term considerations for 2029 to 2033. And comparing the costs, in some cases, the repairs cost almost as much, if not more, than the replacement cost of the building. So certainly for smaller facilities like the, I think the Marina washroom facility, it may be more appropriate as opposed to repairing the existing facility just to start over again. But certainly that would need to be taken into the context of where it's historically appropriate. The city does maintain and operate a variety of historical buildings and properties of historical significance that we should continue to maintain. And certainly, as was talked about in our sports multiplex discussion, a repair versus replace analysis is also recommended for the city's arenas, particularly the 73-year-old PMC, to determine what's the most cost-effective over the next 25 years. Are we better off to make use of the base facility that's there and just repair it? Or is it more cost-effective both in terms of, capital replacement costs as well as, some of the maintenance costs, because there is more, cost-efficient ways to operate and maintain buildings over the next 25-year period. And obviously, as we've discussed in the past, it's going to take a variety of approaches to address the building gap that we see right now. And this could include potential renegotiation with our partners like Laurentian Valley, development of new partnerships like P3 or other revenue-generating opportunities in some of our facilities, taking a hard look at our user fees, continuing to seek government grants and and to use debt essentially to help finance some of these costs over their useful life. So where do we go from here? So Treasury staff as a next step is going to work with operations to review and evaluate potential funding gaps in roads, sidewalks, and storm sewer. All asset management plan data will be reviewed and incorporated as part of our budget 2025 exercise at the staff level. We are looking to outsource our water and wastewater asset management plan, and that's to ensure that we take a cohesive approach in integrating this plan with the infrastructure needs study that's happening right now, with the 20-year facility plans that are being undertaken, and link all of that into our rate study to ensure, full cradle to grave integration, and to make sure we're recovering the appropriate level of costs. And as well, technical levels of service will be developed in consultation with department heads and then brought to council for discussion for each class of asset and for each, reliability, environmental accessibility measure that is appropriate to meet our strategic plan. So certainly what you'll see coming up over the next year in terms of future agenda items to committee and council, staff will require input from council on first of all, approving and setting some operating assumptions related to parks. So setting formal open and close dates for parks and minimum maintenance levels that we can then factor into our budgets and our life cycle costs moving forward. Obviously, as has been discussed, we need to finalize our direction on the pool and the arenas, which we would like to see for December. So that fits well into where we need to go from our asset management plan perspective. We need to look at our proposed levels of service. We would all love great roads to drive on. Can we afford to have every road in the city be in perfect condition? No. Can we afford to have every building in the city in perfect condition? No. So where is the give and take going to be in our plan to make sure that taxes are still affordable to residents and people can afford to live here? We are going to need to do some public consultation because that's a requirement of the regulation. So at this time, we're thinking there may be an opportunity to tie that in to our public budget meeting, which will take place, I believe that's a typo, I think that's January 14th, not 24th, 2025, my apologies. And finally, we're going to have to approve our final version of our asset management plan, which will include a 10-year financial plan by July 1st, 2025. So this plan is certainly, I think, a discussion document at this point in time. We need to integrate it with our core assets and come up with our final plan. So at this time, the objective of presenting this report is to get the Parks and Rec Committee recommendation to approve the City of Pembroke's asset management plan, non-core assets in compliance with Ontario Regulation 588/17, asset management planning for municipal infrastructure. Thank you.
Okay, wow. Thank you. I don't know if I want to thank you, but I'm thanking you for that report, as dismal as some of it looked. So I'm going to ask for comments. Councillor Purcell.
Thank you very much for your thorough report. This asset management plan is, I know, a huge undertaking, and kudos to everybody engaged in terms of compiling all the data. It's very, very useful for so many reasons, and I think it's very useful. I'm kind of used to this asset management plan from about 10 to 12 years ago, having that ability to actually have an asset management plan. I guess my question is, and I'm just looking at Appendix E in terms of the buildings, and I just want to have a better indication. So, like, for example, the Rotary Park, it says Rotary Park Fieldhouse, and I want to make sure I understand this. it's got a replacement cost of $417,000, and in the short term, we need to put $368,000. Is that? That's correct. And this is the Rotary Park that we put a $35,000 roof on last year? Like, this is the reason why we need to have this type of information, because it informs effective decision-making in terms of council, right? So, so maybe we spent poor money on putting a roof on it when the building needs to be replaced. That's what it says to me. It says that the building's got to be replaced typically, because $368,000 to 25 and 28. That's why I think, we need to kind of move forward and put a lot of effort into identifying the condition in terms of our assets, all our assets, identifying those risks, which I really, really like. I was talking to Jordan this week, and we we're talking a little bit about, in terms of the Olympia ice resurfacers, that they're in such poor shape, and both of them are in poor shape, so we don't have a backup. Okay, how do we get there, right? So, and then we can put a strategy in place in terms of identifying when we need to replace it, or go back and reassess. So I think, this is, again, a lot of hard work, and kudos to you and your team for putting this all together. And I think it really should inform some of the decisions moving forward in terms of how we proceed. I think it's awesome, first and final draft, I guess. I guess we have an opportunity to comment by the time we actually approve it, but I think it indicates exactly what we talked about in terms of the condition, in terms of our buildings, and how poor the condition is in terms of the Memorial Center, the PCC, our City Hall, Kinsman Pool. I think it stands out where there's opportunities for improvement, and just coming off an accessibility tour at Riverside Park, we know that the campers, washroom, and laundry facilities, and the field house there requires, or the beach house requires, some attention as well. So kudos to you and the team. Thank you.
Any further comments? Councillor Keel?
I mean, we probably could have had an entire special meeting on this one. So I mean, this, if earlier I was speaking passionately about the fact that we need to stop giving things away, we need to be looking for new revenue sources, it's precisely because of a report like this. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I think the treasurer kind of alluded to the fact that there was bad news. Like, the city's kind of in the hole from an asset management standpoint, I think by millions of dollars. So if we're not getting those from revenues, and, we're not getting them from grants and whatnot, and I know the staff work very diligently, very hard, searching under every rock and government department for grants or whatnot. At the end of the day, the only place the money comes from is the taxpayer. And as we all know around this table, some residents I don't think know, we can't have an unbalanced budget. We're not like the province, we're not like the federal government. We have to balance our budget. So, you end up with, the only thing that I would comment on, and I'm not saying for the report, but I am wondering if in the multitude of spare time that I'm sure you have, could these back appendices be rearranged by department? Again, just for not for necessarily for the report, but just for our visual assessment, and particularly for when budget comes up, because we do often go department by department when we're doing budgets. The one thing that I did notice, and it harkens back, Madam Chair, to a comment that you made way back during our orientation a year and a half ago. I think we're going to find that a lot of very poor things are in the Parks and Rec department. And that doesn't necessarily speak to, it absolutely doesn't speak to staff. It doesn't speak to any one council. It speaks to the fact that for a long time they were viewed as
Soft
soft
services.
services. And I think we've sort of hit a turning point, not just this council, but the community, of investing more in our parks and recreation and in healthy lifestyles. But that also means playing catch up. So those are things that I find concerning, but yet at the same time not surprising. So it was over a year ago, I attended an asset management session, and I think, Madam Treasurer, I think you were there. It was in April of last year, and this is a paper that I know I've gone back to when speaking with Madam Treasurer. It's a paper I've gone back to when speaking with Jordan. And there were a number of points, and one of the main things here that got 2 stars from me was need to change the public narrative, and that the public has no idea the cost, time, or effort that goes into the services that they're getting. And I believe it was based on a study, if I'm not mistaken, where people were asked, how much do you think that splash pad costs? And the study showed that the public is enormously off. They have no idea how much these things cost. Just looking here, the climate lens. I think in talking with Mr. Lewis one day, there was set expectations for many years on the size of culverts and things like that are no longer the expectation, and rather suddenly have changed. And that gets more expensive. You need to build bigger culverts, you need different types of material, the costs go up. This report has Madam Treasurer tearing up. It's dry eye, yes. So I think, I think obviously this is, I don't think anybody around this table, frankly, is probably entirely surprised by this. I do think, though, and again, it was that those first 2 points, need to change the public narrative, and that the public doesn't know how much these things cost. I think those are things that we, for lack of a better term, we need to start sharing and pointing out to people. It's one of the other things I think is in here, I don't know that I started, we were also warned about freebies. Somebody wants to build you a free splash pad, and that sounds great for a municipality. We're getting something free. And then we're taking care of it, maintaining it, and operating it at a cost for how many years? With all due respect, I think the Kinsman Pool is an exact example. It was built by the Kinsman Club. It was given to the city of Pembroke, and I forget how many years later we are, but now it's a pain in our backside to the tune of millions of dollars. So I think without taking the taxpayer to task and drowning their head in water, I think having these asset management plans, and that it's not just us, that it's province wide. I think it's good for us to be having these discussions, and to be saying to taxpayers, in whether it's the town hall at the budget, which I think would be a good idea, just saying to them that it's fine to want things, but there's a cost to it. Everybody around this table would love to say yes to everything. Don't think that I earlier tonight didn't have my stomach turning when I was thinking I'm about to push the button and tell the Buskerfest that I don't want to give them $2,200. Didn't give me happy fuzzies inside, but at the same time, I think we have to start watching our freebies. We have to. A couple weeks ago, we raised parks fees by 5%. That doesn't give me warm fuzzies inside, but we have to pay for the parks. And I was talking with a former councillor from Ottawa who sat on councils in the 80s, and he was telling me that when he was on council in the 80s, they were happy when their revenues were covering about 50% of Parks and Rec. I think today we're down somewhere in the 20. I'm not asking. I think we're down somewhere in the 20%. So our revenues have not kept up with costs, and certainly, when you're talking a public-private partnership, none of us are walking into stores anywhere. We're all buying things, whether it's lunches or toys for the kids, or we're buying stuff every day. I guarantee you, not one of those things that you're buying is the private company sitting there going, well, I'll take a loss this year. And so I think this is important. I think it's a serious conversation to have, but I think it also it needs that public component. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. If there's no more comments, I just want to say something brief. I think level of service is something we have to look at going forward. I mean, everybody wants everything, and we have wonderful services, but I think we have to analyze exactly what do we need for our residents. Earlier tonight, it was mentioned that we serve a region of 70,000 people, and 70,000 people, a lot of them use our facilities. So, you know, I'm not going to go back to the discussion about the pool committee, but if people don't want in, we have to decide what can we afford for our 14,000 residents, not necessarily 70,000. So that's what we may have to decide if individuals don't want to renegotiate agreements or enter into new agreements. And I don't know that this statistic has ever been achieved to get. On what's the percentage of out of Pembroke residents, so that use our recreational facilities? Because if it's 70% from outside using our hockey arenas and our, you know, our pools, and not the parks, obviously, we're never gonna, that's for everybody. But like what's the percentage of out-of-towners that use our facilities? We should almost be recovering that much from our partners. So, I mean, that's an interesting fact. I know it's pretty high, but they should be paying whatever their users are in the percentage in the city of Pembroke. And that is something, and I'm not going to dwell on it, but final comment, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. Ms. Lutz, you're looking for a motion. I know there's, I'm bringing a resolution forward, but a motion to approve. So I motion that we recommend the asset management plan, non-core assets, in compliance with Ontario Regulation 588/17.
Okay, motion on the floor, seconded by Councillor Keel.
I'd just like to speak
Okay.
for a minute. So as Finance Chair, on behalf of Councillor Giacono, Vice Chair, I just want to reiterate the level of work. You told me you were burning the midnight oil, and for Ms. Belair and Lochte and staff, and this is a lot of onus put on the municipality by the province, and it is needed to know what we have, what's the condition, what's the value, what's the replacement cost. And two words come out of this is eye-opener and gap. There's a lot of gaps here. How do we fill the gap? Do we renovate existing buildings? Do we build new if we can? Do we think out of the box like the P3 proposal? Like, those are things tough decisions are going to have to be made to keep the level of service that our residents want. And Councillor Purcell and he was telling me they did a tour. He's chair of the accessibility, and like Pemites too, they have yellow paint on the stairs, but it's really not accessible. Could be a hazard. So our facility's too old. Do we need to build new? But where do you find the money? So these are things that are important, and one of the key things is a public consultation during budget time, so our residents know where we're at, and no one is going to be jumping for joy when we give the news and say, this is what we need to raise and this is where we get the money. So it's going to have to be a planned approach, and there'll be some tough decisions to be made. So that's what I have to say. We have a motion on the floor.
Motion on the floor, seconded by Councillor Keel. All in favor? There you go, approved. Thank you. Next, PBIA Art in the Park request, Colleen Sorial. Thank you. Good evening, Angela, and thank you. Thank you.
Ready?
Proceed.
Good evening. So in 2023, Council may remember it permitted the PBIA to create an outdoor art gallery at Shamrock Park and at Coronation Park. And the PBIA is now requesting to continue this program for 2024 and beyond. And they're requesting once again to use Coronation Park and Shamrock Park, but also some new locations, which includes the Farmers Market, the Pembroke Street Bridge, Lake Street Bridge and Guide Rail, planter on Agnes Street and the planter on Lake Street. There are various sizes to the proposed arts works, and the canvases are all about 1/4 inch of plywood. So according to the PBIA's request, the artwork at Coronation Park and the two planters would be secured by drilling posts and using ground spikes. The artwork at Shamrock Park would be on 4x4 posts with bracing legs, and the artwork at the farmer's market would either be by the posts or by deck blocks. So PBIA has received permission from the Pembroke Farmers Market for artworks to be displayed at the rear of the market along the Algonquin Trail berm, and you have that as part of your package. You'll see that in a picture. The artwork at Shamrock Park would shift directions from Moffat Street to Pembroke Street west once the construction on Moffat Street begins, and the display of the artwork would not cause any visibility issues to pedestrians or motorists. So the Operations Department has reviewed the above locations and cannot support artwork on the Pembroke Street Bridge or the Lake Street Bridge. A structural review of the railings would be required to determine wind load, and based on this reasoning, the Operations Department cannot support artwork on these bridges. However, it can support the artwork on the Lake Street Bridge approach guide rails. And the art could be fastened with using 4x4-inch posts and secured to the guide rail posts using heavy-duty zip ties and or steel strapping. And it would be recommended that the PBIA work with staff to ensure that the placement of the artwork is safe and ensures compliance to traffic and pedestrian safety. It's also recommended that the PBIA gain permission from the farmers market regarding the artwork on the guide rails on the Lake Street Bridge, as it may block some of the view of the farmers market. And the PBIA has spoken to the farmers market, and they have given their approval to this particular request. The Parks and Recreation Department have also reviewed the PBIA request and agrees with the Operation Department's concern. So the encroachment agreement for 2023 was approved on a trial basis for 1 year, so a new agreement is required for 2024. It's recommended that this agreement be for a period of 3 years. Unless new locations are required, then permission and an amended agreement would be required. The PBIA would like to have the art erected by June 20th, so approval in principle will be required so they can proceed with their project. And if direction is provided, an encroachment agreement will be before council at its July 16th meeting. So there are no costs to the city. The city will continue to maintain the parks, and all other costs will be borne by the PBIA. So your direction is required.
Thank you. I have Deputy Mayor.
So this is a wonderful project brought forth from a conference that Bethia Summers and Stacey Taylor went to last year for BIAs. And we tried it last year, and it was a success, and lots of positive comments. Another thing for downtown to bring people down and get them excited, beautify the community. So I make a motion to accept the request for the locations based upon staff's recommendation.
Mover, seconded by Councillor Keel. Any further comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Approved. Thank you. Good night, Bethia. Night. Okay, next item. Appointment of municipal clerk. Heidi.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Section 228, subsection 1 of the Municipal Act as amended provides that council shall provide or shall appoint a clerk, and with the upcoming retirement of the current municipal clerk, a new bylaw is required to appoint Victoria Charbonneau. So this evening, I'm just asking for the Parks and Recreation Committee to recommend to council the approval of a bylaw that will be before them, bylaw 2024-42, with the appointment of Victoria Charbonneau as the new municipal clerk for the city of Pembroke.
Thank you. So we are looking for a motion, comments. Councillor Keel.
I move that the Recreation Committee recommends the council the approval of bylaw 2024-42 for the appointment of Victoria Charbonneau as new municipal clerk.
Okay, moved by Councillor Keel, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Any comments? Just from the chair, I want to say thank you, Heidi. I'm going to miss you, and I'll see you later tonight. Thank you very much. And I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Approved. Welcome. Victoria, thank you. Okay, next Civil marriage solemnization appointment.
Ontario Regulation 285-04 and the Marriage Act provides that, it provides the authorization of the clerk of a municipality or their designate to solemnize marriage with the authority of license. So since April of 2022, the City of Pembroke has been offering civil marriage solemnization services to couples who wish to get married at City Hall. And again, with the retirement of the municipal clerk, a new appointment bylaw regarding civil marriage solemnization for Pembroke is required. So we're asking that the Parks and Recreation Committee recommend to Council the authorization of an appointment bylaw regarding civil marriage solemnization. And a bylaw has been prepared and will be before Council this evening. And just for general information, in 2022, we provided 23 civil marriages that resulted in about $6,500 in revenue. In 2023, that increased to 68 ceremonies, providing a revenue of $18,500. And to date, in 2024, 36 civil marriages have been performed, and with a revenue of approximately $10,000. So we have been fortunate that many couples are wishing to be married here at City Hall.
That's great. Councillor Keel.
I move that the Parks and Recreation Committee recommend the council authorize an appointment bylaw regarding civil marriage solemnization for the city of Pembroke to be heard later tonight at council.
Moved by Councillor Keel, seconded by Councillor Jackno. All in favor? Approved. Thank you. And next, Standing Committee and Council Summer Meeting Schedule. Heidi.
So my last report is in regards to our summer schedule. So as per our city's procedural bylaw, during the months of July and August, we offer one regular meeting of council and one regular standing committee, which is the combined committee in each month. So for 2024, July 16th and August 13th have been scheduled for the summer meeting dates. However, we have a bylaw 2022-80, which appoints the chairs and vice chairs of all the standing committees, and the combined committee is not listed as one of the standing committees. Therefore, a chair and vice chair were not appointed. So of our procedural bylaws, section 5.1.8 states that in the absence of a committee chair, or when the chair steps down, the committee shall appoint an acting chair to conduct its meeting. So it's recommended that committee appoint an acting chair for the July and August combined committees. This allows staff, when they're preparing their committee reports, to address to the appropriate chair of the combined committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As we did last year, I would move that the chair for the combined committee for July and August be the deputy mayor as the chair of finance.
Point of information. Oh, I might be away in August. I might be away in August.
Okay, sorry, we do have a motion on the floor that Deputy Mayor chair both the summer meetings. However, do you accept the...
There's a slight chance I might be away that day.
Sorry, you can't be away.
Yeah.
Simple.
On a vacation.
Okay,
And I will zoom in if possible.
so do we have an alternate? Would you like to withdraw that motion?
Well, Madam Chair, if there's no seconder, the motion will fail.
Okay.
And then I would move then the vice chair of finance be the chair for July and August as the vice chair of finance.
Okay, motion on the floor that Councillor Jackno chair both summer meetings. Accepted, seconded by Councillor, okay, seconded by Councillor Plummer. All in favor? Thank you. And final, thank you, Heidi. Library bench, Mr. Unruh.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just to provide some background, and basically the recommendation is the staff is seeking council direction. So there are various benches located around the city. They're located to provide a place where residents can rest. and/or reflect they're part of a healthy community. Some park benches have been located through construction projects, and some have been donated by residents or organizations in honor of someone. There has been concerns raised about the location of one bench in front of the library on Victoria Street that has resulted in panhandling, harassment of library patrons, and the use of illicit substance, which is in violation of section 6.1, 7.1, 8, and 9 of the City of Pembroke loitering bylaw. The bench is not associated with any dedication. Just to give some further background that wasn't in the report, so this request had come through the library board some time ago. It had sat with me, and so that's why this report is in front of you. And also from Public Works, they indicated that if the decision is made to go ahead and remove the bench, that it could be removed in 2 days. The holes would be filled as required with sealant. And the financial implications are in front of you if you had any questions.
Councillor Plummer.
First of all, I'm not voting to remove any bench here in the city of Pembroke. I think if there's as we see a report that someone's using illicit or prohibited products or illicit drugs, call the police. If they're panhandling, loitering, causing disturbance, we have bylaw officers here in the city. There's opportunities to deal with that way. If they're patrons of an establishment talk to that establishment, see if they can, understand if why they're not visiting and then moving on, or certainly providing a disturbance to the neighbors. I think could certainly be discussion with that certain establishment that they're there to visit. I'm not in favor of removing any benches. It's just going to push the problem continually down the road, across the street, on the stairs of the library. It doesn't solve the issue just removing a bench. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Purcell.
I was the one that requested in terms of having the bench removed. As property manager for the library, we have numerous video footages of individuals loitering, causing disturbances in terms of library patients, in terms of even an individual 12-year-old boy being harassed for dollars and money and those kinds of things. Police have been engaged. No different than a bench that was removed at a drug house not too long ago in a drug area that was removed without this type of oversight. It was just a request from the that was passed by the board to have this removed. I agree that we have a bigger issue. The problem is that it's impacting our neighbors in terms of the library as well. And we do have a loitering policy, but we can implement that if they're sitting on the wall. We can't implement that when they're sitting on a public bench. So that's where the issue is. And to constantly call the police in terms of $376 for every call to the OPP because of these individuals causing a disturbance in front of the library, if that's the wish of this council, I will instruct library staff to do that each and every time. And I know that police will just not come and actually address those types of issues. So if you would like that bench in front of City Hall, by all means, place it in front of City Hall and see what actually issues that it causes here in front of City Hall. There's a big loitering issue in front of the grind, and there's some issues that need to be resolved, and they need to be resolved now. This is a temporary fix in terms of relocating, removing 4 bolts to actually remove a bench where people are dealing substances, utilizing substances, causing harassment and issues, which is a violation in terms of our policy. And if you want, bylaw to get engaged, I'll continue to phone bylaw. But we want a response, and we want a response by either police, bylaw, and we want this type of activity to stop. So I'm requesting that council please remove this bench temporarily until we resolve some of the issues.
Deputy Mayor?
So I'm going to make a motion and then I'll get a seconder, then I'll discuss it. So I motion we instruct staff, request staff to remove the bench temporarily. Need a seconder.
Temporarily?
Temporary till it's assessed, till the situation is cleared. Yeah, because the one on the corner of Cecilia and Alfred was removed temporarily.
So I have a mover and a seconder. For
Okay, so I'm going to speak to it.
Okay.
So I'm the chair of the library board, and we've had issues, and Councillor Purcell told us what they were. The police did come, and they didn't do it. Then the police left, and I'm not criticizing the police. They came, and the individual stayed. Smoking illegal substances in front of the library on the bench, and the smoke goes into the neighbor's house. We have a library board meeting on Thursday night. We're going to discuss our loitering policy. If these individuals decide to sit on the wall, we'll have a loitering policy. We can give them a trespass notice. The police have been called. There was a time Councillor Purcell spoke to Mr. Novak of the Grind, and it was good for a couple of weeks, but now there's some new individuals which we haven't seen around. And the city has the loitering bylaw, and they're congregated on the bench. This will send a message, and it'll send a message that, the bench is gone. If they sit on the wall, we'll issue trespass notice. But the police are very busy. The MESA program is very busy. They can't be everywhere. The bench was removed at the other parquet, and so we're requesting this bench to be removed. I could tell you, I could go on and on about different calls I've had. We're losing patrons at the library. They're going to Renfrew. They don't want to come in the library. We have ongoing issues, and this is one way of dealing with it. Thank you.
Next speaker, Councillor Jackno, and then I'll speak from the chair. Oh, sorry, Councillor.
Sorry, am I out of turn here? Yeah, it's a sensitive situation, but I agree. Removing the bench, they're just moving down the road. And there's a problem within the library. I've been there when a guy's been eating French fries with gravy, had his feet up on a desk, and they're using the washroom to do illicit things. So it doesn't just start at the bench. And it's a police matter, and I think the police have to react to it. And they're just going to move somewhere else. I mean, if you want to put the bench in front of City Hall, I guess maybe that'd be a good idea. Then we could see them right away and phone right away, and the bylaw officer's right here. But I'm being a little facetious. Forgive me. I understand the problem. I understand the frustration. But just temporarily moving it out of the way, they're just going to go somewhere else. That's not the solution. And I understand the frustration, but I've been in the library when a guy with a pack sack, and I can't make the assertion that he's homeless, but he's got his feet up, and he really doesn't give a damn about wiping his greasy hands on that beautiful armchair they have there. He's there because it's a place to get out of the cold, place to sit down. It's a public place. And I understand that they've had issues with the washroom facility. I don't know if the public can even access that washroom anymore. Do they need a key? They need a key. So if I'm a fentanyl user and I ask for the key, will you give it to me? That's a question, Madam Chair, through you. Where's the answer, But I don't think moving the bench is the answer.
Councillor Keel.
I have two aspects of this. Number one, it's 9:04 p.m. and I'm actually mildly annoyed that this is part of our package this week, because I do know that the bench up on Alfred Street last year was moved in someone's direction. Does the CAO know who moved the bench last year? It didn't come to council.
No, I didn't.
I'm not going to lie to you. I don't need every movement of a bench coming to this. We should be working on far more important things. I would have rather spent another 3 minutes talking on the asset management report than talking about a bench. That being said, is this going to solve a problem? It's going to solve a little problem, or it might be moving a little problem. I don't know. At the end of the day, we, I don't know what to do with this one. I mean, at the end of the day, I want to support the library. We have our library representatives telling us that this is what the library committee and presumably the library staff want. We moved a bench last year in a parkette. Nobody came before this council to do it, so I'm assuming staff made the decision on that one. I don't know. To me, this is a mildly ridiculous thing. Will they just sit on the steps? Yeah, I guess they'll sit on the steps, and then we'll be calling bylaw, or we'll be calling the police to come get them. Does that work? I got to tell you, Councillor, through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Giacono, I had a client tell me that they did call the police. The police showed up, the police left, and the police came back and gave Tim Hortons to the people on the bench that were supposedly doing the illicit drugs. I don't know. If this at least moves them off the library property and people will be more willing to walk up those steps, I guess that's a positive as opposed to a negative. But I mean, these people aren't going to up and disappear in the wind. I mean, they're going to go somewhere. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing, but I mean, this whole thing's mildly annoying.
I'm just going to say that I agree with Councilor Plummer. And, I mean, there's a problem throughout the city when it comes to addiction right now, and there are people loitering in all kinds of locations. These individuals are obviously waiting to go for lunch at the grind or something of that nature. So they're probably not there all day. I've driven, or when it closes, because these people don't have a home to go to, so they sit on the bench, and I'm just assuming. I don't think it's going to solve the problem. They're going to sit on the steps, they're going to sit on the hill, because they're still going to loiter around that area. So I'm not in favor of removing it. I think it's just moving the problem. I don't think it's going to move the problem. I think that this is a very fluid situation, and hopefully it's going to change with a lot of the meetings that have been taking place with the county and the paramedics and the different agencies that work with these individuals. And I think it's a matter of an education thing. My granddaughter goes on the bus. She comes home at night and tells me she saw drug deals on the city corners. She specifically mentioned 2 corners, and they weren't near the library. One was on the corner of Christie Street and Pembroke, and one was in front of the Rexall Pharmacy across from the Legion. So it's happening all over. So yeah, I will not be supporting this motion. So if that is all, I will call the question. Thank you. All in favor of the motion? To remove the bench. And against? Okay, the bench stays. Councillor Purcell?
I want council to know that I am resigning from the library board. Thank you.
Okay. And Mayor Jerva?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, motion to adjourn. All in favor? Adjourned.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this council meeting to order for June 18th. I'd ask that everyone please take an opportunity to stand for an opening prayer and reflection. Before opening this meeting of council, I would ask those who wish, each in your own way, silently join in a prayer of guidance over these proceedings. Thank you. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest in relation to the matters of the council meeting this evening? Seeing none, moving on to minutes, a number of them this evening. First up is approval of the minutes from council. First up is special meeting of council June 4th, 2024. I have Councillor Plummer so moving, seconded by Councillor Lafreniere. Those in favor? That is carried. Next is regular meetings of council, June 4th, 2024. I have the deputy mayor so moving, seconded by Councillor Lafreniere. Those in favor? That is carried. Next, we have adoption of minutes from various committees. First, we have Operations Committee, and it was May 21st, 2024, having been circulated. Moved by the deputy mayor, seconded by Councillor Plummer. Those in favor? That is carried. Next was Parks and Recreation Committee from the same date, May 21st, 2024. I have Councillor Keel, seconded by Councillor Plummer. Those in favor? That is carried. Then we have minutes to receive from local boards. This evening we only have one circulated in your package. Pembroke Heritage Murals Committee, June 5th. Moved by Councillor Plummer, seconded by Councillor Lafreniere. Those in favor? That is carried. Staff and committee reports. We have one this evening. Councillor Plummer, we have Operations Committee, pre-purchase of specialized equipment.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Operations Committee of Council begs to report recommends the meeting held this evening as follows. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Jacquino, the Operations Department be permitted to execute a pre-purchase of specialized equipment for filters, launders, and under-tile drain replacement project at the water purification plant at the cost of $1,870,000 plus applicable HST.
Moved by Councillor Plummer, seconded by Councillor Jacquino, that the Operations Department be permitted to execute the pre-purchase of specialized equipment for filters, launders, and under-tile drains replacement project at the water purification plant at a cost of $1,870,000 plus applicable HST. Councillor Plummer, did you wish to speak to
This was discussed earlier in the Operations meeting. This allows the pre-purchase of specialized equipment as to increase cost savings and increase the speed of the project to be completed.
Thank you. Those in favor? That is carried. Moving forward with proclamations, the two proclamations this evening. The first is regarding National Indigenous Peoples Day. So by the virtue of the power vested in me, I do hereby declare June 21st, 2024 as National Indigenous Peoples Day in the City of Pembroke. Whereas the Government of Canada acknowledges June as National Indigenous History Month and June 21st as National Indigenous Peoples Day as a way to honor the history, heritage, and diversity of Indigenous people in Canada, as well as to recognize the strength of present-day Indigenous communities. And whereas the Indigenous people of Canada have made and continue to make valuable contributions to Canadian society, and it's considered appropriate that there be in each year a day to mark and celebrate these contributions and to recognize the different cultures of the Indigenous people of Canada. And whereas National Indigenous Peoples Day is a wonderful opportunity to become better acquainted with the culture, diversity of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people, and to discover the unique accomplishments of Indigenous people. And whereas the City of Pembroke is a community that celebrates its cultural diversity, therefore be it resolved that I, Ron Jerva, Mayor of the City of Pembroke, do hereby proclaim June 21st, 2024 as National Indigenous Peoples Day in the City of Pembroke and urge all residents to take this opportunity to celebrate and recognize the contributions of Indigenous people in our community and country. As indicated, June 21st is National Indigenous Peoples Day. This is an opportunity for everybody to celebrate the cultural richness and contributions of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. I encourage all residents to celebrate and embrace our rich cultural fabric. There will be teachings, music, and activities on June 21st at the Pembroke Waterfront Amphitheatre. The second proclamation this evening concerns the Pembroke Horticultural Society. So by virtue of the power vested in me, I do hereby declare July 2024 as Pembroke Horticultural Society Month in the City of Pembroke. Whereas the Pembroke Horticultural Society is celebrating their 100th anniversary this year, and whereas the Society is a nonprofit organization offering something for everyone interested in gardening, whether you are a beginning gardener or an experienced green thumb whose objective is to encourage interest in horticulture and the beautification of the city of Pembroke and area, and has for the past 100 years. And whereas the Society, with its dedicated, enthusiastic, and knowledgeable members, have and continue to be instrumental in caring for the many flower beds, parks, and parkettes in the city of Pembroke, including Pansy Patch Park and the Pembroke Waterfront, which, in partnership with the Kiwanis Club of Pembroke, has developed the Arboretum that features over 100 trees and shrubs, a book tree, a bird habitat, gazebos, picnic tables, and a waterfall. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Ron Jerva, Mayor of the City of Pembroke, proclaim July 2024 as Pembroke Horticultural Society Month in the City of Pembroke, and encourage all residences and businesses to participate and contribute in the beautification of our city and our community. As was indicated, the Pembroke Horticultural Society is celebrating the monumental event of 100 years serving the residents in the community, and we know from the recent delegation that they have many things planned for their anniversary, and we look forward to all those different events. The Horticulture Society is a strategic partner with the City of Pembroke, accomplishing many great things for all of us in our community to enjoy. Bylaws. The first we have is 2024-42, appointment of a municipal clerk. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Pat Lafreniere, that bylaw 2024-42, a bylaw to appoint a municipal clerk for the city of Pembroke, be adopted and passed, and further, that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation.
Thank you. Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Lafreniere, that bylaw 2024-42, a bylaw to appoint a municipal clerk for the city of Pembroke be adopted and passed, and further that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Deputy Mayor.
This was brought up earlier during committee, and it's a bylaw to appoint a new deputy clerk, Ms. Charbonneau, and we're going to miss Heidi very much. And thank you for all your service, Heidi.
Questions and comments?
Comment, Your Worship. I know that she probably won't like to hear it, but it's too bad. Heidi Martin has been an exemplary employee with the City of Pembroke for over 15 years. During her tenure, she served under 3 different mayors with 3 different personalities, with 3 different needs, and she served them without restraint. She always provided good, sage advice. She was here often on weekends when not required, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. She took her job very seriously, and she's a shrinking violet. I know that. She doesn't like the spotlight turned on her, but she doesn't like praise or public recognition, but I think a person of her quality and capabilities cannot retire without somebody saying something to her. I know she expressed you, Your Worship. She didn't want anything said, but the heck with protocol. Being a 3-term mayor, I feel that she served me just wonderfully. And I remember when I was defeated, you know, we had a close working relationship, not only with Heidi, but with the other staff. There was a feeling of gloom. I came into the office after the election. I did not go on holidays, but I said to Heidi at that time, Heidi, you know, mayors come and go, councillors come and go, but good staff are always here. And I said, it's your duty to serve the incoming mayor with the same capabilities that you served me. And I know she has done that, and she continues to do that with you, Your Worship. This being her last meeting, thank God, eh? Hey, Heidi, thank goodness. I just thought I'd keep you here a little bit longer with some accolades. I know that your family will be glad to see you. You'll spend some time with your husband and your dear father. And thank you very much from the community and all our residents. Thank you.
Well said, Councillor Jacquinot. Councillor Keel?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll be a little shorter than Councillor Jacquinot. I first got to know Heidi when I was sitting on the Police Services Board, and that was now some time ago in the last decade. Heidi was always there to provide advice. She was always there to answer questions. Since being elected to council, she, in many ways, I think just because I knew her more than our CAO, she was my first contact in those early days. Heidi, I think you've done an absolutely fantastic job, whether you want the praise or not. These are big shoes to fill, and I also want to say to Victoria, welcome to the family. We get along most of the time. It can be a little rough some of the time, but we are a group that works, generally speaking, well together. There's politics involved, there always will be around this table, and find me a municipal table where there's not. And I'm sure Heidi has seen things in her years, and I'm sure you're going to see things in your many, 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 many years with us. So thank you, Heidi, and welcome, Victoria.
Well said, and perhaps it's fitting that we just acknowledge that. So with that, I'll call the question. Those in favor? It's carried. Reluctantly. Next is 2024-43 Civil Marriage Solemnization. Councillor Lafreniere.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Troy Purcell, that bylaw 2024-43, a bylaw to authorize the municipal clerk or designate for the City of Pembroke to provide civil marriage solemnization services in the City of Pembroke, be adopted and passed. And further, that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Lafreniere, seconded by Councillor Purcell. Bylaw 2024-43, a bylaw to authorize the municipal clerk or designate for the City of Pembroke to provide civil marriage solemnization services in the City of Pembroke be adopted and passed. And further, said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Councillor Lafreniere.
Yes, Councillor Jackno stole my thunder, so I am going to just say I want to take a few moments to recognize Heidi Martin again for her many years of service to the City of Pembroke. I knew Heidi and Dale back curling years ago before she started working for the city, so we have a kind of a little bit of a personal relationship. Her professionalism and personality will truly be missed. I know her and her husband Dale will find many enjoyable things to do and places to travel to, and I look forward to still following her on Facebook and maybe sharing some travel tips here and there. So we will miss you, Heidi. Enjoy your retirement. It's time for you. Okay. And welcome, Victoria. Sorry.
Okay, call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Last bylaw for this evening is the encroachment agreement 2024-44. Councillor Giacono.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. Moved by myself and seconded by Deputy Mayor Abdallah that bylaw 2024-44, being a bylaw to authorize the entering into of an encroachment agreement between Catherine Donovan and the Corporation of the City of Pembroke be adopted and passed. And further, that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation, and awaiting your signature, Your Worship.
Moved by Councillor Giacono, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Bylaw 2024-44, a bylaw to authorize the entering into of an encroachment agreement between Catherine Donovan and the Corporation of the City of Pembroke be adopted and passed. And further, said bylaw be signed by the Mayor and Clerk and sealed with the seal of the Corporation. Councillor Giacono.
Thank you, Your Worship. This was discussed previously, and it's self-forward. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? If not, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Against? It is carried. Next is motions 2024-16, Asset Management Plan. Deputy Mayor.
Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Troy Purcell. Be it resolved that the Corporation of the City of Pembroke approves the City of Pembroke's Asset Management Plan for non-core assets in compliance with Ontario Regulation 588/17, Asset Management Planning for Municipal Infrastructure.
Moved by the Deputy Mayor and seconded by Councillor Purcell. Be it resolved that the Corporation, the City of Pembroke, approves the City of Pembroke's Asset Management Plan, non-core assets in compliance with Ontario Regulation 588 of 17, Asset Management Planning for Municipal Infrastructure. Deputy Mayor.
Your Worship, our treasurer presented our asset management plan for non-core assets tonight, and we have a lot of work to do, a lot of gaps, a real eye-opener, a lot of tough decisions to be made in the next few years. This will be loaded on the city's website, I understand, and there will be public information meetings about it at budget time. Will it be loaded on the city website?
I wasn't sure if that was a question or a statement. Through the chair. So it first has to get put through in regards to making the document accessible, and then it will be put on the website. So I don't have a timeline in regards to when the document will be accessible.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Moving on to Mayor's Report. I wish to bring forward my Mayor's Report at this time. On June 6th, I had the pleasure of attending a gathering at the Kingsman Pool to celebrate the commencement of construction there in respect to the retrofitting of the building. It's great to work with partners such as the Township of Laurentian Valley as well as the Friends of the Pool in respect to the rehabilitation of the Kingsman Pool. Later that day, I had the pleasure of attending with Councillor Keel in terms of the formal grand opening of Ashes. Please join me in celebrating and attending all the businesses in Pembroke and showing your support for all of the businesses in our community and the services they supply to the entire area. June 8th, it was a true pleasure to attend the 68th Annual Ceremonial Review of the 638 Algonquin Royal Canadian Air Cadet Squadron. These young men and women are our future in the military. I understand from the guest speakers that there is a large number of men and women needed to fill a number of vacancies in our military. I was most pleased to see that we are in good hands with these cadets, a number of which are from Pembroke itself. A few medals were handed out at that time, with other medals to be handed out at a later time. It's of special note that Councillor Giacono's grandson was awarded with the National Lord Strathcona Medal, recognizing excellence in youth in Canada, and so well done. On June 10th, I had the pleasure to attend County Council Chambers for the unveiling of a new legacy fund in the amount of $375,000, which is funds generated from the 2023 Ontario Winter Games. These funds are being provided to the foundation, which is now called the Upper Ottawa Valley Foundation instead of Pembroke Petawawa Foundation. And there's a variety of different grants that will be handed out over, they estimate, 5 to 6 years for a variety of different things, but they all turn on recreation and facilities. And it was pointed out to me that perhaps the City of Pembroke ought to apply for one of the grants. In any event, on Saturday, June 15th, I attended the Silver Stick AGM to bring greetings on behalf of City Council. There was representation from all over North America here in Pembroke. It was very well attended. For those that don't know, what happens with the annual general meeting is every year it's held in a different location. For the last 2 years, it's been held in Canada. For the next 2 years, it's going to be held in the States. I understand one of them is going to be at Las Vegas, but in any event, they move it around and they move it to the different locations that have Silver Stick, as we did, or we do. Silver Stick this year is celebrating 40 years, so we have our 40th anniversary. We have many more years than some of the municipalities. It was interesting talking to different individuals, whether it be from the States or other areas of Canada. My understanding is a very well done job by the board of the Silver Stick, the local branch, because while business was being conducted, they ensured that there was different activities going on for the spouses to attend, such as attending local restaurants, doing some painting, going golfing, and doing other activities, and exposing them to everything that the Ottawa Valley has to offer. So it was very well done. And in light of that, the Silver Stick, local Silver Stick, provided us with this appreciation award for, maybe what I'll do is pass it around, provided us with an award. They recognize the partnership between the City of Pembroke and the Silver Stick, because make no mistake about it, it is a a big feat every year for all those organizers to conduct and put together the tournament. I made special note to comment about Terry O'Neill because he is mentioned on our Silver Stick banners, and the significance of Terry O'Neill to our community, because not everyone at this meeting would understand the affiliation of Mr. O'Neill to our community and to hockey in general. Today I had the pleasure to attend a grand opening of Campbell Monuments. It is now located in the heart of the Ottawa Valley at 1318 Pembroke Street West. I think it's always been, the local office has always been in Laurentian Valley, but it is now in Pembroke, and they own their own location, so they're not going anywhere anytime soon, which is very nice. Campbell Monuments has a long history of providing quality monuments to the public, and as I say, it is now located in Pembroke. On a different note, a much more serious note, I wish to address recent conversations in respect to the crosswalk at Albert Street for a moment. As we know, the crosswalk display has a pride flag on it. And as we all know, Council has approved to move forward with a better product, a product that, as I understand it, will last anywhere from 3 to 5 years and won't fade like the rest of our lovely latex paint that we apply to our streets. When this initiative was undertaken, it was approved by Council and was at no cost to the City of Pembroke. This year, a better product, as I say, is being applied. The city did release a media release. I received, and I don't know about the rest of you, a number of different phone calls from different individuals voicing their opinions. As I've expressed to them, having conferred first with Mr. Lewis, is that the asphalt work being done is because the asphalt in that location is a trip hazard, is degraded, and certainly needs to be redone. And so that's why that is being done, and not due to any other particular reason, but simply to rejuvenate the asphalt there, and certainly as part of an ongoing basis, the operations department continues to look at different locations in that respect. So that's why that's being done, and the crosswalk to reinstitute it. I've pointed out to the individuals I've spoken to that we proudly fly the pride flag, no different than we fly other flags, community living and other flags. I've expressed to them that even operations has been approached in respect to putting different types of crosswalks like Remembrance Day crosswalks and so forth, and that City Council has an open mind and is willing to entertain any of those different things. I think I'll leave it at that, but simply I wanted to straighten out in respect to the media release, because it wasn't entirely clear as to why and who was paying for what. I hope, I'll say it that way, I hope that the City of Pembroke lives up to my thought on what the residents are like in the City of Pembroke and are a community that I'm proud of. And as always, be safe and be kind to one another. Notices of motion. Seeing none, Councillor updates. Councillor Keel.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple updates today. On June 6th, I did have the opportunity to attend at the Royal Canadian Legion for their commemoration of the 80th anniversary of D-Day. It was a very nice ceremony with President Stan Halliday and the other members of the Legion present. Certainly, I know everyone around this table has the greatest of respect for all of our veterans, and certainly D-Day was, an international triumph. And as I said at the Legion, being invited to give brief remarks, it's not every day that individuals know that they're about to make history, but the men and more than a few women, they knew on D-Day that they were about to make history one way or the other, and certainly they had that on their shoulders, and we certainly we thank everyone for their appreciation of our veterans. I then, Your Worship already noted that I attended with you at the Ashes grand opening. Very unique restaurant here in the City of Pembroke. They have an arcade where for $5 you or your children, but you can play all of the arcade games and whatnot for as long as you want. They have a good menu that I'm slowly getting through, including their new taco bar, all-you-can-eat taco bars on Thursdays. So a great local restaurant. We have so many of them, as I think Councillor Jacquino said earlier, 60 or more restaurants. So certainly, I think everyone should give them a try. I do want to plug Canada Day quickly, Your Worship. It is now 2 days long in the city of Pembroke. So we are starting June 30th with Roseburg presenting a lumberjack festival, followed later on by a free barbecue, a free movie, Birds of Prey show, and free kung fu lessons. So that is all June 30th at Riverside Park. And then, of course, on Canada Day itself, an entire lineup as usual down at the Waterfront Park in the afternoon. And then in the evening, we have Ghost Town Criers kicking off a concert for the first time before the fireworks start. So this is, I think, one of our biggest Canada Day celebrations in years, and I want to thank Councillor Lafreniere and Councillor Purcell and the Parks and Rec Department for putting on such an amazing lineup of events. Festival Hall update, CDE Dance Recital is June 22nd. Just added to the calendar today, we have a Crack Up Ottawa and Canadian North Arctic Comedy Festival coming up July 25th. Already many events on the calendar in the fall, and for those wondering, it is currently 3-1 Edmonton in the second period. Toronto is definitely not in the Stanley Cup Finals.
Councillor Purcell. Thank you, Your Worship. I guess 2 weeks I reported that the Warming Centre Committee was awaiting the final report. Still, that is the same case. I've reached out to the grind management again just to see if I can get a copy of the final report. So once it's made available, I'll provide it. I attended the 17th annual County of Renfrew Wardens Golf Tournament with Dave, Pat, and Victoria. Pat also took away a few prizes in terms of women's longest drive and closest to the pin, so congratulations, Pat. And I wanted just to say thanks to everyone who was associated with the event. It was definitely a fun, but also a wet day for all that was in attendance. So, the Accessibility Advisory Committee completed its on-site assessments of Riverside Park, the Waterfront Park, and City Hall to identify opportunities to enhance accessibility. Again, a formal report is being compiled and will be approved at the next committee meeting and then made available to council. The Pembroke Library Giant Book Sale occurred and barbecue was held on June the 8th. We raised $3,250 for the purchase of a new book drop. Special thanks to all in attendance and Carthy and the library staff for their hard work hosting this it's actually a very popular event. There was actually people lined up before the opening to get their hands on some books. So great job for everybody involved. Of course, we attended the staff and council training on the clerks. I've had clerks on demand, but I think it's clerks on call. There we go. Reviewing the procedural bylaws and opportunities to enhance meeting efficiencies. And then on Friday, I attended the opening of Airborne Petawawa. It's a provider of skydiving and solo and tandem military conversions and fly suit instruction. It was an opportunity to watch Laurentian Valley Councillor Wendy Hewitt actually make her inaugural jump from the safety of standing in the viewing area. Congratulations to Wendy for ticking that off your bucket list. I'm so proud of you. And in preparation of our upcoming Multicultural Festival being held on the 19th and 20th, myself, Parks and Rec, and library staff performed a preliminary walk down the event space discussing the event logistics. Again, the two-day event is a celebration of ethnicity and diversity within our community. And to learn more about the activities for the Multicultural Festival, just please check the library's website for additional information. And that's it.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Worship. My wife Mary and I participated in the June 9th, 10th annual Krista Johnson Memorial Run for Change that brought greetings from the city. This event holds a special place in our hearts, a celebration of community, resilience, and the enduring spirit of giving back. Krista Johnson exemplified these qualities. She was a beacon of hope and tireless advocate for positive change for the youth, a friend to all. Her legacy lives on in this run, which is held annually and all funds raised go to the Elevate Youth Wellness Center in the Phoenix Center. We want to thank her parents and all the organizers and volunteers and participants who helped raise money for this annual event. And it was very well attended, and the weather participated most of the time, and we want to thank everyone for participating. I was talking to Bethia Summers earlier tonight, and just a reminder that the Pembroke Farmers Market has extended their hours from 9 till 1 on Wednesday and Saturday mornings. Christine Tomka runs the canteen on Wednesdays. There's excellent food. And on Saturdays, there's a chap, I can't recall his name, but he makes an excellent smash burger. So, and a breakfast sandwich too. I've had the smash burger, and I highly recommend it. This Friday at 5 is Go Skateboarding Day, and the skateboard community is organizing an event, and everyone is welcome. And the reason they're having it on Friday, we were hoping to have the lights installed at the skateboard park, but Ottawa River Power Corporation is very busy. They have a lot of commitments, but they will be doing it in the near future. And we want to thank the anonymous donor for the hydro poles, the City of Pembroke for purchasing the lights, Parks and Rec Department, and also we want to thank Ottawa River Power Corporation for volunteering to install the poles and the lights. So please extend our thanks to them, Councillor Plummer and Councillor Giacono. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Confirming bylaw, Councillor Purcell.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Pat Laferniere that bylaw 17/2024 to confirm the proceedings of the regular meeting of council for June 18, 2024 be adopted and passed, and further that said bylaw be signed by the mayor, clerk, and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Thank you, Heidi.
It's moved by Councillor Purcell, seconded by Councillor Lafreniere, that bylaw 17-2024 to confirm the proceeding of the regular meeting of council of June 18, 2024 be adopted and passed. Further, said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. Those in favor? That is carried. Motion to adjourn. I have Councillor Plummer, seconded by Councillor Keel. Those in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you.